Phoenix Nights. Chapter 784. Dongbu Shuang was still worried that the golden flames from the black gourd would harm the cosmos. Just as he plugged the cork, the treasure spirit immediately transmitted a warning. But it was too late. Gu Qianluo's sneak attack this time was to catch the other party off guard, and to be extremely fast. Not good. Dongbu Shuang did not have the time to control the black gourd. With a thought, he immediately hid into the mirage world, disappearing from the place. The current Dongbu Shuang had reached large success in his Tao of Mirage, stepping into the ruler realm. The Tao of Mirage might be weak in terms of offense, but it had formed a world of its own, and was extremely formidable in survival. Some rulers with weaker techniques might not even be able to find the true body of Dongbu Shuang. 1. Gu Qianluo's attack through the primal chaos flying ship had caused an unseen ripple to sweep across the location where Dongbu Shuang was previously. At that moment, time-space distorted, and the figure of Dongbu Shuang could be vaguely seen in another world. This ripple had also forcefully permeated into the complete mirage world, though its power had drastically decreased. Only 10% to 20% of its original strength was left. Pooh! This attack directly invaded the body of Dongbu Shuang. Nevertheless, his body was like the void, easily dissipating more than half of this attack. The remaining power merely caused the blood in his body to boil. His face turned red, yet he did not spurt out any blood. What? It actually failed to injure him. Gu Qianluo felt disbelief within the primal chaos flying ship. For the sake of catching the other party off guard and speed, even though this attack was slightly weaker, it had still reached the threshold of the Void God realm. It was not any weaker than the attack executed by the two great avatars of Blood Blade and Black Bird Fifth Uncle Master. Such power could not even make Dongbu Shuang spurt out blood. Such a life-saving ability was indeed very exaggerated. But he did not know. The body of a Void Walker was like the Void, and could not be affected by any force. In addition, his body was already tyrannical. Even though he had just reached the 11th level of Walker's hidden secret, his body was already stronger than most religious leaders. Just by relying on his body, he could fight against apex rulers. Thus, it was hard to injure a Void Walker. At the same time, Dongbu Shuang's Tao of Mirage was an extremely life-saving Tao in the Laws of Profound Mysteries system. It formed a mirage world of its own. Wanting to kill a Void Walker who was hiding in the mirage world was indeed too difficult. Gu Qianluo! Dongbu Shuang, who was being attacked, looked at his opponent, and immediately pulled out the stopper of the black gourd. Boom! Surging golden flames gushed out of the gourd and descended into the real world, charging directly at the chaos flying ship. Boom, boom, boom! The golden flames engulfed the primal chaos flying ship. However, the primal chaos flying ship remained unscathed. At this moment, Gu Qianluo was thinking about how to deal with Dongbu Shuang. As for the golden flames, he was not afraid at all. What a joke! By relying on the primal chaos flying ship and other external items, he could fight against void gods at his peak. Even if he met with danger in the primal chaos void, he could rely on the primal chaos flying ship to resist against it. Even if the Cosmos Epic was destroyed, it could not damage the primal chaos flying ship at all. Much less the primal chaos flying ship, even that wooden mustache warship of the ancestor mother religion could not be damaged by the golden flames of the black gourd. Naturally, Gu Qianluo could only hide within the flying ship. The protectors of the ancestor mother religion could only hide within the warship and did not dare to come out. Damn! Dongbu Shuang released the golden flames. Seeing that the primal chaos flying ship was unscathed, he could not help but grit his teeth and stop using the black gourd. He plugged back the stopper. These golden flames of yours are too berserk and destructive, to the point of harming your cosmos. I thought that you would continue to use them until the end of this cosmos epoch. Gu Qianluo's voice reverberated across the void, bringing with it a chilling intent. Master, don't worry. You can only use the black gourd for a short period of time. Furthermore, the area affected by the golden flames is relatively small. The damage it will cause to the cosmos is relatively low. the treasure spirit transmitted. Amen. Dongwu Shuang grabbed the black gourd. He appeared from nothingness and stared coldly at the distant primal chaos flying ship. And Bloodblade, Monarch Green, Primal Master, Abyss Primogenitor, and the other rulers were furious. Bloodblade directly roared out, Gu Qianluo, you chose mysterious North Imperial Empress in the past and promised to help us. But now, not only are you helping the ancestor mother religion, but we have already snatched their first altar, and you still dare to ambush Snow Eagle? Haha. I did choose that brat mysterious North Imperial Empress and swore an oath with her. But I did not violate the oath, right? She has always been in my primal chaos flying ship, and I have never harmed her. A voice transmitted from the primal chaos flying ship. As for my promise to help you, ha ha ha, you still believe in promises? What a joke! Bloodblade and the others were furious. Gu Qianluo did not care about their promises at all with his strength and identity. He did not care about his reputation at all. Within the primal chaos flying ship, the enormous sculpture Gu Qianluo was ridiculing them. At the same time, he was carefully observing Dongwu Shuang, thinking of how to deal with him. He had never given up. That black gourd was a protective treasure. He did not care about the price he had to pay. Amen. Let's follow this plan and risk it all. Gu Qianluo soon had a plan in his heart. Even though Dongwu Shuiying's figure had appeared, he was still within the mirage world. He was on high alert. Dong! A strange sound resounded from within his soul. However, Dongwu Shuiying's soul had fused with the complete Walker's hidden secret, allowing him to easily resist against it. But this caused Dongwu Shuiying's expression to change. He immediately pulled out the stopper of the black gourd, causing the golden flames to fly out once again. But this time, not a lot of them flew out. Instead, they revolved around the surface of Dongwu Shuiying's body, forming a golden sphere with Dongwu Shuiying standing at the center of this golden sphere. The damage dealt to the cosmos was determined by the amount of golden flames, as well as the area of effect. The greater the amount, the greater the area of effect, and the greater the damage. Just by forming a golden sphere around his body, a radius of 2 to 3 meters, the damage dealt was pitifully low. Huff! 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 Dongwu Shuiying's cautiousness was not wrong. Other than the soul attack at the start, a strange wind followed closely behind. The wind appeared from nothingness. After passing through the mirage world, its might was greatly reduced. Then, it forcefully attacked the golden flames, causing it to be completely exhausted before it could penetrate through. This Gu Qianluo, the Temporal Island Lord Primal Master, Abyss Primogenitor, Monarch Green, Empress Qianhe and the rest were greatly alarmed. They looked at the void around the primal chaos flying ship that was starting to appear one after another. Layers of strange attacks descended. There were 3 types of attacks that targeted the soul, sound, curse, etc. There were also some that targeted the physical body, and some that targeted the world. The array patterns appeared one after another before vanishing. Gu Qianluo gritted his teeth. The gigantic statue was just his appearance. His real body was hidden within the primal chaos flying ship. He was currently sitting cross-legged and was crazily controlling the primal chaos flying ship to attack. His injuries were already rather severe. Therefore, the sudden burst of such a powerful attack was also very damaging to him. As long as I can obtain this black gourd, everything will be worth it. After obtaining it, I will immediately leave this cosmos. I will let Sang Dan help me control the flying ship, and I will continue sleeping. Gu Qianluo had already made up his mind to continue sleeping. However, what was a protective treasure? What was a protective treasure? Attacking was secondary. The most important thing was protection. The berserk golden flames became extremely obedient under the control of the nothingness array. They formed into a perfect sphere that protected Dongwu Shuiying. The layers of flames combined beautifully. Everything was under the control of the nothingness array. The might of Gu Qianluo's desperate attacks was indeed terrifying. Some of them could only be slightly weakened by the mirage world. However, the golden flame sphere was able to completely resist them. As for other attacks that could penetrate, like soul attacks, they were completely useless against Dongbush Shuang. As for other attacks that could penetrate the golden flame sphere, they were basically unable to injure Dongbush Shuang. I can't kill him? No, no, no. Gu Qianluo was about to go crazy. Under the Ancestor Bone Throne, the sacred sons competed with each other. The weak were prey to the strong. Originally, he was at the bottom, which was why he disregarded everything and chose to roam the primal chaos void. Although he had experienced many dangers, this black gourd was the best treasure he could hope to obtain. Although he was worried that he couldn't kill Dongbush Shuang, he still wanted to give it a try. However, the result of his attempt made him even crazier. He wasn't willing to accept it. Amen? Bloodblade looked at the primal chaos flying ship from afar. He looked at the gigantic array diagram that appeared in the void around the flying ship. He was already extremely proficient in arrays. He was able to create the Void Twin Extreme Array. He was even able to create the 12 primal pillars with the strength of a ruler. Currently, he was seeing many mysterious arrays being activated in front of him. This was not something recorded in the Myriad Catalog, but a true array being activated and operating. Bloodshed God Emperor could not help but be infatuated by it. His realm was close to that of these arrays, and he could see through many of them. Gradually, his expression turned blank. His mind was blown. That indistinct and blurry new world had finally unfolded in front of him. Chapter 785. At this moment, Dongbush Shuang was in the Mirage world. He was using the black gourd to release golden flames to surround his body. No matter how Gu Qianluo attacked, he could not be injured. Master, you can be rest assured. Gu Qianluo's injuries are severe. He has only recovered after sleeping for a few cosmos epochs. Previously, he had only helped the ancestor mother religion once. Now that he is continuously attacking you, it is highly possible that he has his eyes on the protective treasure, the black gourd. After all, Master has used it once and twice when you were at the Paragon realm. Your offensive techniques are completely different, and their power has exceeded a major realm. This Gu Qianluo is a sacred son under Ancestor Bone, and his horizons are broad. He should have guessed that the black gourd is a protective treasure. That is why he is acting so crazily. The treasure spirit transmitted. But attacking so crazily will place a huge burden on his body. His injuries will worsen, and he won't be able to hold on for long. Amen. Dongbush Shuang understood. After reaching the 11th level of Walker's hidden secret, a large amount of information was transmitted into his mind. Various superpowers across the 5 great sacred worlds had cultivated to the final realm. Amongst them was Ancestor Bone. Ancestor Bone was in existence comparable to Forefather Tian Yu and Lake Heart Island Sword Master. He had reached the final realm of cultivation. No, no, no. This black gourd is mine. I must obtain it. I must obtain it. Gu Qianluo felt a tearing pain in his soul. His expression turned pale. His blood-colored eyes stared at Dongbush Shuang. Why is a brat who has yet to leave the cosmos able to obtain a protective treasure, but I don't? Just as he was going crazy, he suddenly turned towards another direction. That was the direction where the blood blade was located. Gu Qianluo's attention was focused on Dongbush Shuang. He did not care about the other rulers. However, the primal chaos flying ship had enveloped the surrounding void, and could still sense the unique movement from the blood blade. That is... Gu Qianluo's expression changed. Another blood blade appeared in the void. This was the body that was originally on the island. This scene caused Dongbush Shuang, Monarch Green, Primal Master, Abyss Primogenitor, and the others to be shocked. Because from the start of the war until now, not a single ruler had entered the battlefield with all their bodies. This rule was set by Bloodblade. But now, all 3 of Bloodblade's bodies were here. Buzz! The 3 Bloodblades smiled at each other. At the same time, their bodies merged together to form a single Bloodblade in dark red robes. The Bloodblade was the only one in the entire universe. Boom! A terrifying ripple was emitted from the Bloodblade's body, causing the surrounding void to turn dark. Dark clouds were rolling within, and countless array vein patterns were revolving. Many enormous arrays covered the surrounding starry sky, and that vast and heart-palpitating power caused everyone present to turn sluggish. As far as one's eyes could see, the surrounding void had turned dark. This region had most likely exceeded 50 billion kilometers. Dongbush Shuang had a formidable control over the void, and he knew that the endless gloom domain released by his teacher had covered a terrifying region approximately the size of a starfield. Void God. Dongbush Shuang completely understood. Void God. Primal Master, Abyss Primogenitor, Pangyi Monarch Green, Purgatory Ruler, and the others also understood. Seeing this power that far surpassed that of a ruler, everyone understood. Bloodblade has finally taken this step. I knew that this day would come, though who would have thought that he would break through at this moment? Primal Master revealed a grin. Void God, our cosmos epoch has finally given birth to a Void God. Abyss Primogenitor sighed. Temporal Island Lord was watching silently. He was originally an extremely arrogant person, and was not willing to admit defeat in front of the Bloodshed God Emperor. But at this moment, he understood that the gap between them was too big. The Bloodshed God Emperor had already stepped into another level. Deity, World Deity, True God, Void God. From True God to Void God, this was a huge leap in realm, and the difficulty was high. We still have a long time in this epic. Pangyi revealed a grin after seeing this. Bloodblade has already become a Void God. By the end of this epic, Bloodblade should be able to reach the height of Ancestor Devil. He dared not hope for reaching the height of Lakeheart Island Master, but it was still possible for him to reach the height of Ancestor Devil. Even though the cultivators and rulers present were shocked, and had some other emotions, they were happy too, because this epic had given birth to a Void God. Even if this epic was destroyed, the Void God could still bring them to roam the primal chaos void and continue living, or even to a wider world. What Void God? He broke through to the Void God realm? Gu Qianluo was greatly startled. At his peak, he could fight against Void Gods with the help of the primal chaos flying ship. But now, he had to deal with Dongbush Shuang, causing him to be heavily injured. It was impossible for him to fight for a long time. Gu Qianluo! Bloodblade's voice reverberated across the endless void. His eyes were filled with coldness as he looked at the distant primal chaos flying ship. Hong Long Long! Two enormous arrays appeared above and below the primal chaos flying ship. One array was made of dark flames, and the other was made of white frost. The two great arrays were revolving, and completely opposite forces were acting on the primal chaos flying ship. It was as if the primal chaos flying ship was being locked down. Bloodshed God Emperor knew that it was hard to break through the arrays, so he decided to imprison the other party first. He has just become a Void God, yet he is so strong? Gu Qianluo could feel the might the primal chaos flying ship was facing. His expression could not help but change. He did not know. Bloodblade cultivated two great systems. One was the Laws and Profound Mysteries system, and the other was the Hex system. He specialized in arrays and refining weapons. The Laws and Profound Mysteries system focused on the essence and grasped the laws. The Hex system was the opposite. It focused on researching the myriad existences. Dongbush Shuang also felt that the Hex system was not any weaker than the Laws and Profound Mysteries system. It was also extremely complex and powerful. This time, Bloodblade had broken through the Hex system. In terms of combat power, he was much stronger than some of the simpler systems like the Ancestor Mother religion. If he were to break through in the Laws and Profound Mysteries system in the future, he would be even more terrifying when he fused the two systems together. Hurry up and leave. I can't fight for long. Gu Qianluo did not dare to stay any longer. Hua! The primal chaos flying ship suddenly turned translucent. With a sough, it flew towards the distance. Furthermore, the distant void began tearing apart. Layers of membrane walls were torn apart, as if a curtain had been pulled apart, revealing the vast and icy primal chaos void outside. The chaotic void seemed to be empty, but it contained an extremely powerful destructive power. He wants to leave? Bloodblade and the others understood what was happening. This primal chaos flying ship is too formidable. I can't stop it even though I have just broken through. Bloodblade understood this point too. And within the ancestor mother religion's wooden mustache warship, the group of religious leaders were looking at this scene in complete despair. Previously, when Dongbush Shuang used the black gourd to snatch away the first altar, they were already in a daze. When Bloodblade became a void god, it made them feel even more despair. If it was just the altar being snatched away, they could still refine it again. But the birth of a void god determined that they were doomed. Nevertheless, they still held on to a strand of hope that Gu Qianluo would save them. But at this moment, Gu Qianluo was ignoring them. Master, please bring my clansmen away. I'll give you all their treasures. Religious leader Sang Dan looked at the enormous sculpture in front of him and begged Gu Qianluo. My injuries are serious. I can't stay any longer. Gu Qianluo coldly said. At this moment, his injuries were serious. His soul was being torn apart. He could not help but fall into a deep sleep. He could only grit his teeth and endure. As for Pang Yi, Monarch Green, Abyss Primogenitor, Primal Master, Empress Qian He and the rest, they looked at the 9 streams of light. Their perception was getting blurry. They only had one feeling. It was fear. Fear that came from the depths of their hearts. Fear of despair. Otherwise, this epic will be finished? When Dongbush Shuang heard his master's transmission, his heart trembled. His wife was only a stage 4 world deity, and his children were even weaker. No! Dongbush Shuang could no longer care about his hatred and killing intent towards Gu Qianluo. He frantically pulled out the cork of the black gourd. Chapter 786. Bloodblade was incomparably anxious. He was absolutely not willing for his hometown to be destroyed just like that. As for Shuang, he had gone mad. Because the Cosmos epoch was ending, his parents, wife, children, and disciples would all die along with the Cosmos epoch. He would rather die than for his loved ones to die. If he was the only one left in this world, what was the point of cultivating to a formidable level? No! Dongbush Shuang was so furious that his eyes were about to pop out. Primal Master, Pang Yi, Monarch Green, and the others could not stop this at all. They could only watch as everything unfolded. Ha ha ha! Even if we die in battle, we'll make this Cosmos epic perish together with us. The religious leaders within the wooden mustache warship were originally in despair. When they saw the 9 streams of light, they could sense the terrifying destructive power contained within them, causing them to turn slightly mad. Come, let's have a great apocalypse, and let everything perish in the great apocalypse. In the tranquil starting ground, there were red flowers and green willows. The grasses were gently swaying along with the wind. A skinny black wild dog was currently lying within the grasses, allowing the wind to blow on its fur. Its tail was even swinging back and forth. Truly useless. You've lost the face of your master. The black wild dog snorted before disappearing. Dongbush Shuang was currently releasing the golden light of the black gourd amidst his anxiety and madness. Bloodblade was also doing his best to control the array. The others were watching, with Gu Qianluo, who was currently flying into the cosmos membrane tear, looking back with a sneer. Right at this moment, an incomparably huge black dog head appeared in the void. It was so big that Dongbush Shuang and the others could only vaguely see it with their realms. This huge black dog head seemed to be in another world. It was clearly overlapping with the rulers like Pang Yi and Monarch Green, as well as the wooden mustache warship of the ancestor mother religion, yet it did not clash. The huge black dog head opened its bloody mouth. Within its mouth was a primal chaos maelstrom. Its mouth was so big that one could not see its edge. It had already enveloped the 9 streams of light flying in different directions. Following that, this huge dog head abruptly sucked, causing the primal chaos flying ship that had already flown out of the cosmos membrane tear to fly back into the mouth of that huge dog head filled with primal chaos maelstrom. Since you dared to disobey me, you have to pay the price. Gu Qianluo was originally sneering with killing intent, but closely following that, he was stunned. An enormous black wild dog appeared. It was too big. Fortunately, the primal chaos flying ship could sense an extremely wide region. Thus, by relying on the primal chaos flying ship, Gu Qianluo was able to discern that this was an extremely skinny black wild dog. Its body was incomparably huge, and just a single tail could penetrate through several dozen starfields. The length of its body was almost equivalent to a third of the territory of the Bloodshed God Palace. When it opened its mouth, it could envelop several starfields. There was even a primal chaos maelstrom within its mouth that engulfed the 9 streams of light. Quick, 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 quick! Gu Qianluo turned mad. His soul was trembling. He knew that this was the most dangerous time he had ever been in his entire life. He did not care about the soul-tearing pain as he controlled the primal chaos flying ship, trying his best to escape. The speed of the primal chaos flying ship had also increased to its limit. The primal chaos flying ship had already charged out of the cosmos membrane tear, arriving in the primal chaos void outside. But within the cosmos, that enormous black wild dog's cold eyes were looking at this tiny black flying ship. Its enormous mouth merely sucked in a breath. A terrifying swallowing force immediately acted on the primal chaos flying ship. This force was too huge, causing the primal chaos flying ship to fly back with a sough, flying directly into the primal chaos maelstrom within the mouth of the wild dog. No! Seeing the primal chaos flying ship flying in, Gu Qianluo's eyes were filled with despair. How could this be? How could this be? After being swallowed by the wild black dog, following that, a terrifying ripple engulfed the primal chaos flying ship, directly permeating into it. Gu Qianluo's concealed body was also affected by this ripple. He felt his soul trembling, before losing his consciousness and fainting. Even religious leader Sang Dan and mysterious North Imperial Empress within the primal chaos flying ship fainted. Dongbu Shuang, Bloodblade, Monarch Green, Temporal Island Lord, and others were all looking at this scene in a daze. The religious leaders within the ancestor mother religion's wooden mustache warship were also watching in a daze. Who? The originally boundless wild black dog instantly shrunk to a size of only a few hundred miles. The wild black dog was very skinny, so skinny that one could even see that it was just skin and bones. It stood in the void, one of its tails swinging as it spoke in the human language. Roar, this is too embarrassing, a disgrace to my master. He was clearly about to win, yet he was tricked by Gu Qianluo. Senior! Bloodblade took the initiative to speak. At this moment, he was still puzzled. Where did this terrifying wild black dog come from? According to the intelligence he received, once one stepped into the void god realm, one could not enter other cosmos because the cosmos protected all beings within it. Existences that were too strong were forbidden from entering. Naturally, if one was too strong, like Void Walker Gu Qi, he was so strong that he was comparable to Forefather Tianyu. He could easily destroy a cosmos, and the cosmos could not stop him. Hence, he could easily enter. Causing the destruction of a cosmos epoch and destroying a cosmos were two completely different levels. Within a cosmos, many epochs would cycle continuously. The moment the internal environment was destroyed and was no longer suitable for cultivation, the cosmos would naturally destroy the epoch before giving birth to a new environment suitable for cultivation. The cycle of epochs was also a part of the operation of a cosmos. The cosmos itself was very stable and powerful. But the strength of this wild black dog had completely surpassed a new void god like him. Furthermore, it was within a cosmos. Many thanks, Senior. Dongbu Shuang and Temporal Island Lord expressed their gratitude one after another. The two of them were acquainted with the wild black dog. I've met Senior before, but who would have thought that Senior is so formidable? Temporal Island Lord said. Amen. The wild black dog acknowledged with slight arrogance. He then turned to Dongbui Shuang and Blood Blade before praising. Blood Blade, not bad. It is still early in this cosmos epoch, yet you have become a void god. You are currently at the void god origin birth realm, and by the end of this epoch, you should have hopes of reaching the unity realm. Haha, the only one who has reached the void unity realm in this cosmos is Ancestor Devil. Sword Master is on a higher level. Many thanks for your praise, Senior. Blood Blade felt even more bewildered. It seemed that this wild black dog was familiar with every expert in his cosmos epoch. He was familiar with Lakeheart Island Master and Ancestor Devil. Dongbui. The wild black dog looked at Dongbui Shuang before glancing at the black gourd in his hand. Who would have thought that as a disciple of my great void heaven temple, you have cultivated for such a short period, yet you have another powerful inheritance. Void Walker Gu Chi's techniques were too profound. The wild black dog did not discover it. As for the black gourd, it did not think that the black gourd was formidable in the past. Only this time, it could see that it was a protective treasure. For the other party to refine such a protective treasure and allow Dongbui Shuang to use it when he was at the opening realm, it was absolutely an amazing existence. Even if he could not defeat Forefather Tianyu, he should be close to it. It's just luck, Dongbui Shuang said. He felt both delighted and shocked in his heart. Previously, he knew that the wild black dog had once bitten off a piece of meat from Lakeheart Island Sword Master. He only felt that it was powerful, but he did not know how powerful it was. This time, he was truly frightened. However, after thinking about it carefully, it made sense. After all, Lakeheart Island Sword Master was only a step away from Forefather Tianyu. For the wild black dog to be able to injure him, its strength should be close to that of Sword Master. It might even be stronger than Ancestor Devil. That's right, there's still this fool. The wild black dog spat out 3 beams of light. One of the beams of light was caught by its claw. It was the unconscious Gu Qianluo. The other 2 beams of light were the unconscious mysterious North Imperial Empress and Sect Master Sang Dan. Wake up. The wild black dog grabbed onto Gu Qianluo's paw and shook it. Gu Qianluo's body trembled as he started to wake up. The moment he opened his eyes, he saw a huge wild black dog standing in the void in front of him. He was so scared that his face turned deathly pale. Chapter 787. Spare me. Senior, spare me. Spare me. Gu Qianluo didn't even have the slightest thought of resisting, as he started to beg for mercy. Although he was terrified, he still had hope. From his point of view, if Gu Qianluo wanted to kill him, he would have already done so. It was also possible that Gu Qianluo knew of his master, Ancestor Bone. Ancestor Bone was after all an existence that had cultivated to the pinnacle. His influence and status were extremely high. This wild black dog in front of him should be afraid of his master. Spare me? The wild black dog grabbed Gu Qianluo with its claws and looked at him. Ho, you fool! I can treat you as if you don't exist even after sleeping for a few eras in this cosmos. It's fine if you escaped after fighting with bloodshed and the rest. But you actually wanted to destroy the cosmos created by my master and destroy this cosmos epoch? You are really courting death. Gu Qianluo was alarmed when he heard this. However, he was puzzled and could not help but ask. Senior, your master created this cosmos? Let alone Gu Qianluo, even the rulers present like Pang Yi, Temporal Island Lord, Myriad God Palace Master, Abyss Primogenitor and Empress Qian he revealed shocked expressions. Upon seeing this, Dongbui Shuang sighed inwardly. It seemed that very few people knew that Ancestor Tianyu created this cosmos. He only knew about this when he met Voidwalker Gu Qi. Even when he first entered the starting ground, he thought that the master of the starting ground was a mysterious expert. He did not know that the other party was the creator of this cosmos. After he passed the opening realm test and entered the straw hut, he saw Ancestor Tianyu's image. Only then did Ancestor Tianyu said that he was the creator of this cosmos. There were very few who knew that Ancestor Tianyu created this cosmos. The wild black dog and the white-haired old man knew about it, but they did not say anything. Void Walker Gucci also knew about it, but he only told him, his successor. Lakeheart Island Sword Master and a few others who passed the opening realm test probably knew about it too. However, they would not easily tell their juniors about this secret. If they were weak, there was no point in knowing about it. Eh? Dongbush Shuang looked around. My master and Yuanchu master seem to know about this? Bloodblade looked at Dongbush Shuang and smiled. Snow Eagle, I didn't expect you to become a disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Bloodblade knew that this cosmos was created by forefather Tianyu. But the Great Void Heaven Temple was only created after he became a void god. Information was transmitted directly into his mind from the cosmos, of which there were large amounts of information regarding the Great Void Heaven Temple and the 5 great sacred worlds. There was also a map leading to the 7-star oceanic sacred world. In the starting ground, one has to pass the opening realm test to become a disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Dongbush Shuang transmitted his voice. Patriarch is the patriarch of our universe. Naturally, we are also members of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Bloodblade nodded. They were in a relaxed mood. Gu Qianluo was horrified. Master? How could an existence at this level be willing to be a servant? Furthermore, why would he stay in the cosmos for a long period? Isn't this equivalent to being imprisoned in a prison? He was clear of the strength of the wild black dog in front of him. It could absolutely be a forefather in the outside world. Only existences who had reached the final realm of cultivation were qualified to make them lower their heads. Even so, experts had their own pride. Reaching this level, there were few who were willing to be a servant. Even if there were eccentrics who were willing to be a servant with such terrifying strength, most of them would have more desires. It was impossible for them to protect a cosmos for a long period. How could there be any experts who were too powerful within the cosmos? They would not be able to temper their strength at all. Staying here was equivalent to being imprisoned. Hence, there was only one explanation. This wild black dog isn't a true life form. It should be a puppet refined by someone. Gu Qianluo thought. Because it wasn't a true life form, it would absolutely obey the orders of its master. But Gu Qianluo became even more horrified as he thought about this. The number of existences who could refine such a terrifying puppet could be counted with one's fingers. After all, not everyone specialized in refining puppets. For instance, forefather Tianyu, he was an existence who had reached the final realm of the laws and profound mysteries system. He could also be good at refining puppets. For instance, the Ancestor Mother Religion system and the Void Walker system, they were much weaker in terms of refining. Refining a puppet that is close to the Void Primal Chaos realm is much harder than creating a cosmos. Paying such a huge price to refine such a puppet, yet it was thrown into a cosmos? Gu Qianluo felt that he was going crazy. Entering a cosmos. This cosmos was actually created. Forget it, there was actually a terrifying puppet that was refined in this cosmos? How could the existence that created this cosmos be willing to do so? Gu Qianluo could not believe it. If his teacher Ancestor Bone had such a powerful subordinate, he would definitely bring him along with him. Many matters could be arranged for such a subordinate to handle. Because such a subordinate would be absolutely loyal and sufficiently powerful. But forefather Tianyu had thrown this wild black dog here. You could have chosen not to die, yet you are seeking death. Naturally, I have to fulfill your wish. Bloodblade Dongbua, the few of you fellows don't have any objections, right? If not, I'll eat him up. The wild black dog looked towards Dongbua Shuang and the rest. Dongbua Shuang, Bloodblade and the rest shook their heads. No objections. All of them wanted to kill Gu Qianluo as soon as possible. Eat me up? Gu Qianluo was startled awake from his thoughts. Looking at the wild black dog in front of him, he immediately begged. Senior, spare me, spare my life. Ho ho. The wild black dog roared twice. It deliberately bared its teeth, revealing its snow-white teeth. Saying that, it grabbed Gu Qianluo with its claws and slowly stuffed him into its mouth. Seeing this, Gu Qianluo became anxious. I am a disciple under Ancestor Bone. I am the seventh sacred son. You cannot kill me. If you kill me, Ancestor Bone will never let you off. Ancestor Bone? The wild black dog stopped. It curled its lips. Why would my great void heaven temple be afraid of an old skeleton like him? If he has the capabilities, let him fight with my master? Existences that cultivated to the pinnacle would have different levels of strength. Forefather Tianyu was a terrifying existence. Ancestor Bone? Indeed, Forefather Tianyu did not care. Humph. In the distance, Dongbu Shuang shook his head inwardly. Forefather Tianyu did not care about Ancestor Bone. Now, his great void heaven temple had two existences, Forefather Tianyu and Lake Heart Island Sword Master. How could a mere Ancestor Bone compare to the power and prosperity of their current forces? Furthermore, Forefather Tianyu was famous for being protective. It was precisely because he was too protective and concerned about his juniors. Therefore, he did not hesitate to refine a wild black dog to protect the universe he created. Gu Qianluo also knew about the reputation of the Great Void Heaven Temple. He could not help but become anxious. If you want to kill me, why don't you just kill me directly? You even captured me alive, and now you want to kill me? I captured you alive so that I can scold you, and let you die in despair and fear. The wild black dog bared its white teeth. Gu Qianluo was stunned. He captured him alive just to scold him? To make him feel even more fear? Die. The wild black dog was still slowly grabbing onto Gu Qianluo. Gu Qianluo frantically struggled, but an invisible force enveloped him. He was basically unable to resist, and could only watch in despair as the giant mouth got closer and closer. Gu Qianluo was directly thrown into the mouth. The enormous wild black dog swallowed him with two kacha sounds. He then looked towards Blood Blade, Dongbu Shuang and the rest. Dongbu Shuang and the rest were also somewhat speechless. This wild black dog senior was truly lively. He intentionally reprimanded his enemies before killing them. Why are all of you looking at me? The wild black dog stared. Could it be that you still want that primal chaos flying ship? The eyes of Blood Blade, Dongbu Shuang, Pangyi, Monarch Green and the rest lit up. The wild black dog was so powerful that the primal chaos flying ship was useless. However, it was still very attractive to them. Don't even think about it. The wild black dog sneered. Master said that one has to rely on oneself in the path of cultivation. There's no such thing as reaping without sowing. This Gu Qianluo was killed by me, and the primal chaos flying ship was snatched by me. Of course it belongs to me. Dongbu Shuang and the rest were speechless. You are so powerful. What use do you have for a primal chaos flying ship? The flying ship naturally belongs to Senior. Bloodblade chuckled. Who would have thought that our cosmos would still have a Senior protecting it? If we had known, we wouldn't have fought so crazily in this war. Humph, if not for Gu Qianluo wanting to destroy this cosmos epic, I wouldn't have acted so easily. The wild black dog snorted. Master said that one has to rely on oneself in cultivation. The war with the ancestor mother religion is also a form of tempering for you all. You all died because you are not strong enough. Unless their ancestor mother religion is about to establish a sacrificial altar to change the cosmos, only then will I act. The ancestor mother religion is indeed tyrannical. Fortunately, my master is formidable and left behind a backup plan. She must be dreaming if she wants to turn the cosmos created by master into their ancestor mother religion cosmos. The wild black dog sneered. In reality, not many existences who cultivated to the final realm would leave behind a terrifying puppet that was 10 times more precious than the cosmos. Properly cultivate. The wild black dog swept his gaze across Bloodblade, Dongbu Shuang and the others. You all have protection within the cosmos, but it's much more dangerous outside. Oh, right, do you want me to help you deal with that ancestor mother religion warship? The wild black dog's gaze landed on that wooden mustache warship. His eyes had a strand of light. He loved collecting. No need, no need, Bloodblade said. I'll spend some time to deal with it. Oh. The wild black dog acknowledged. He then turned around unhurriedly. With a step, his figure turned illusory and disappeared without a trace. Only then did Bloodblade let out a sigh of relief. He still wanted to get the treasures of the ancestor mother religion. The wild black dog's actions would all end up in his hands. Bloodblade, that religious leader from the ancestor mother religion? Abyss Primogenitor pointed at the unconscious religious leader Sang Dan in the distant void. Exterminate him. Bloodblade was indifferent. He then turned his gaze to the distant wooden mustache warship. Fellow Taoists, I only have a single body now. Thus, I'll have to trouble you all to evacuate the clansmen from the Lake Heart Island historical remain. Chapter 788. In the depths of the Lake Heart Island, Pangyi, Monarch Green, Purgatory Ruler, Temporal Island Lord, Abyss Primogenitor, Empress Qianhe, Myriad God Palace Head and Primal Master were all present. Among them, Pangyi picked up the Eden treasure and smiled. Everyone, let's head out. Brother Pangyi, wait up. A voice rang out. The white-robed Dongbu Shuang appeared out of nowhere. He was a member of the Army of Destruction and was able to teleport in from the outside world. Dongbu? You even rushed over for such a small matter? The rulers were all laughing. In the world of cultivators, the strong were respected. Shui Ying's display of terrifying combat power had naturally earned him the respect of everyone. Furthermore, everyone vaguely understood that with such a fast cultivation speed, if there was anyone in this cosmos epoch who could catch up to the bloodshed god emperor, it would most likely be Shui Ying. There's a small matter that I have to trouble all of you with. Release old ancestor Black Devil from the Eden treasure. Dongbu Shui Ying spoke. After which, he turned to the Temporal Island Lord. Temporal Island Lord, please forgive me. I have to take revenge for my master. The Temporal Island Lord frowned as his expression turned ugly. No matter what, old ancestor Black Devil was his subordinate. Now that Dongbu Shui Ying clearly wanted to kill old ancestor Black Devil in the name of taking revenge for his master, the Temporal Island Lord was infuriated. He also understood that whether or not he wanted to release old ancestor Black Devil depended on Bloodblade. This was because the Eden treasure belonged to Bloodblade. He wouldn't be able to stop Bloodblade even if he wanted to. Humph. The Temporal Island Lord snorted coldly. An esteemed ruler killing a powerful existence? Isn't that too much of a bully? I've said it before. I have to take revenge for my master. Dongbu Shui Ying's voice turned cold. He had already given the Temporal Island Lord a lot of face by taking the initiative to say it. Would the Temporal Island Lord be able to stop him? Humph. The Temporal Island Lord laughed coldly. Indeed, Hegemon Dongbo's power is higher than mine. Within the ruins of Lake Heart Island, you and Pangyi won't be obstructed at all. I won't be able to protect him, but do you really think you can kill him? One of his clones isn't in this universe? Dongbu Shui Ying sneered. He had discovered it long ago. In the entire universe, only a single body of Patriarch Black Fiend could be found through karma. The other doppelganger couldn't be found at all. It was either hiding in the starting ground or some similar place. Either that or they had gone to other universes. Oh, there was also the possibility that he didn't have an avatar. It would be a joke if old ancestor Black Devil didn't cultivate an avatar to save his life. If he didn't cultivate an avatar, he would still die if his true body was killed. That's right. His other avatar is indeed in another cosmos and has yet to return. The Temporal Island Lord sneered. Does Ruler Dongbo still have the confidence to kill him? Pangyi laughed. With a thought, old ancestor Black Devil directly appeared beside him. This was because the moment Dongbu Shui Ying arrived, he had already borrowed the power of his law domain to forcefully isolate all karmic transmissions. Within his own law domain, he could create his own laws, and his words would be absolute. The other rulers could also use their law domains to resist. However, everyone understood what Dongbu Shui Ying wanted. There was no need for them to go against Stonebush Shuang at this moment. The Temporal Island Lord had no way to warn Old Ancestor Black Devil. Island Lord. Old Ancestor Black Devil glanced at the Temporal Island Lord. After that, he saw the group of rulers around him. At the same time, he also saw the white-robed Stonebush Shuang. This caused his heart to tremble. However, his other avatar had entered another cosmos by chance. Hence, he was still able to maintain his calm. Old Ancestor Black Devil. Stonebush Shuang spoke. His voice was fleeting and fleeting. Old Ancestor Black Devil only felt the world before his eyes distorting. The other rulers could see that Old Ancestor Black Devil's eyes had already turned sluggish. They instantly understood that Old Ancestor Black Devil had fallen into a trap. Stonebush Shuang. Old Ancestor Black Devil seemed to have regained his senses. He pointed to the void beside him and roared in rage. You want to kill me? What a pity, my luck is good. My other avatar isn't even in this cosmos. It's impossible for you to kill me. As for this body of mine, ha, if you want to kill me, I'll let you kill me. Ha, boom! Accompanied by his laughter, Old Ancestor Black Devil suddenly exploded. Admirable. The Purgatory ruler spoke. You actually managed to make Black Devil commit suicide despite being in another cosmos. Black Devil's avatar committed suicide first before his true body committed suicide. The Primal Master spoke as he praised. Truly impressive. The Temporal Island Lord's expression turned even more unsightly. It's just some illusory realms, Stonebush Shuang said. His Tao of Mirage had reached the ruler realm. In terms of controlling illusory realms, he was the number one in the cultivator cosmos. He was merely an ordinary powerful existence, but in just a single exchange, Stonebush Shuang had caused him to fall into an illusory realm. His true body and avatar were connected by memories, and both of them fell into an illusory realm at the same time. Stonebush Shuang easily led Old Ancestor Black Devil's avatar and true body to commit suicide one after another. After the avatar committed suicide, the true body's soul would be unique. The Primal Master had used a secret technique to discover this point. Let's go. The Temporal Island Lord coldly spoke. Let's go. Pangy nodded. Who? In an instant he brought everyone out of the Lake Heart Island historical remnant, arriving in the starry sky outside. In the vast starry sky, Pangy began to teleport out a large number of cultivators from his Eden treasure. Paragons, powerful existences, world deities, and even some talented young fellows. The peak elites of the entire cultivator cosmos were all teleported out. Proceed according to the previous plan. Pangy spoke. Yes. The group of paragons and powerful existences acknowledged the order. They were in charge of moving the cultivators in batches, though their gazes could not help but land on the body of Stonebush Shuang. They could sense that one of the three ancestors of the Bloodshed God Palace, Monarch Dong Bo, was currently together with the rulers. His unseen aura was not any weaker than that of the rulers, and this startled them. They did not dare believe that Stonebush Shuang, who had cultivated for such a short period of time, had become a ruler. But the scene before them forced them to let their imaginations run wild. Monarch Dong Bo has indeed become a ruler. If not for Monarch Dong Bo, the war with the ancestor mother religion would not have ended so quickly. Pangy said. Monarch Green, Primal Master, and the others nodded. At that moment, the entire place turned silent. Other than the many powerful existences present, almost all the world deities in the cultivator cosmos, as well as a large number of young fellows, had heard it clearly. The legendary Monarch Dong Bo had actually reached the ruler realm. This shocked them greatly. This was a legend! The war had ended, and everyone began returning to their own places. The entire cultivator cosmos regained its peace. The powerful existences at the apex also knew that other than Monarch Dong Bo, who had become a ruler, the publicly acknowledged strongest existence in the deity world and abyss, Bloodblade, had reached a higher realm, shocking many powerful existences. Senior disciple Brother Hui Ming and Chihua Lao Zu knew that forefather Black Devil had died, and the knot in their hearts had been resolved. Compared to Dongbu Shuang, their feelings for Sacred Master Crimson Dust were much deeper. Dongbu Shuang and Sacred Master Crimson Dust did not have much feelings for each other. On one hand, he had killed Forefather Black Devil to repay a debt of gratitude, and on the other hand, Forefather Black Devil had committed all sorts of crimes, inciting his killing intent. I have already become a ruler. Many of the things I wanted to do in the past should be done now. Dongbu Shuang thought, it's just that Sky Island Master will most likely resist fiercely. Chapter 789. Master. A deep voice could be heard. Temporal Island Lord, who was seated cross-legged on the silvery white grass mat, opened his eyes. He knew that this voice belonged to the treasure spirit of the Temporal Temple. What's the matter? Temporal Island Lord asked. The few brats I controlled have been forcefully brought away by Monarch Dongbo. The deep voice continued. Furthermore, he has removed the imprint I left on the souls of those brats. Those few brats are none other than Ken Huang, Maishan Master, and a few others whom Monarch Dongbo got acquainted with when he was a transcendent. Humph. Temporal Island Lord snorted coldly. So be it. There are trillions of reincarnators, and those few can't be missed. Yes. The deep voice obediently acknowledged. Go. Temporal Island Lord was too lazy to speak any further. This Dongbu Shuang is a person who values relationships. Temporal Island Lord's eyes were filled with coldness. It was just that a figure was faintly appearing in the deepest part of his heart. That figure was distant and indistinct. He once had the most important person in his life, just that everything was fake and a joke. Temporal Island Lord sneered with a low voice. Previously, I've received intelligence that he had reversed time-space and revived a batch of brats from the River of Time. What Tong San, Cheng Ling Shu, and the other weaklings? It is fine if they are just people from the Xia people's world, but who would have thought that he would even save those reincarnators who had crossed the Crimson Rock Mountain together with him? He is truly soft-hearted, yet he could become a ruler so quickly. Even though he felt unhappy, he could not do anything about it. Dongbu Shuang was the strongest amongst rulers in terms of combat power. Only Monarch Green and Purgatory Ruler could compare with him. If he were to use that black gourd, unless Bloodblade acted, he would be unparalleled. Temporal Island Lord could only endure the suppression in terms of combat power. Furthermore, with the current state of the cosmos, Bloodblade had become a void god and was high above everyone else. Nobody was willing to offend Bloodblade because in the future, when the cosmos reincarnation cycle ended, Bloodblade would have to bring them along with him. Bloodblade and Dongbu Shuang are master and disciple. Regardless of whether it was because of Dongbu Shuang's strength, potential, or for the sake of the future, the rulers would definitely try to befriend Dongbu Shuang. Even the eccentric Temporal Island Lord could only endure it. Since he had the strength, he should do what he needed to do. Dongbu Shuang had indeed revived a large number of people. However, to him, it was as easy as lifting a finger. To many of the people who had been revived, it was extremely important. When the Maishan Master and his true love saw each other, their faces were covered with tears. Ken Huang laughed like a madman, laughing so hard that tears came out of his eyes. Master! In the starry sky, Dongbu Shuang arrived at the base of the Ancestor Mother religion. That spherical fort was currently surrounded by many complicated arrays. Bloodblade was standing in the starry sky watching from afar. At the same time, he was controlling the arrays and pondering over them. As for that wooden mustache warship, it had long been destroyed. Those religious leaders within had been killed mercilessly by Bloodblade. Snow Eagle, you are here! Bloodblade chuckled as he looked at his disciple. He then turned to the ancient spherical fort in front of him and sighed. There are only 2 religious leaders within this base of the Ancestor Mother religion, and they have been killed by me using a secret technique. Currently, there is no life within this fort, yet I can't open it or refine it. Snow Eagle, do you have any ideas? Dongbu Shuang was inwardly startled. His teacher was indeed a void god. He could actually kill the 2 religious leaders within the base of the Ancestor Mother religion. In terms of arrays and treasures, I am far too lacking compared to teacher. Teacher, you should not ask me about these, Dombush Shuang said. Bloodblade chuckled. That's right. Even though his disciple was talented, researching the myriad existences required him to spend a long time, energy, and comprehension ability. Only then would he have great accomplishments. It would not do if he did not have sufficient time. You aren't here just to see me, right? Bloodblade chuckled. Speak, what's the matter? With his current realm, he was absolutely unparalleled within the cosmos. What he wanted to do now was to walk further on his path of cultivation. Ancestor Devil and Lake Heart Island Sword Master of the same race had walked ahead of him. There's a matter, Dombush Shuang solemnly said. Teacher, the Temporal Temple is a huge tumor rooted in the deity world, abyss, and even the material realm. They can even forcefully abduct Grade 3 true meaning transcendents and control their souls, forcing them to participate in life and death missions, forcing them to temper themselves between life and death, causing batches of them to die. Only Grade 2 true meaning transcendents have the right to reject. But how hard is it for a Grade 2 true meaning transcendent to emerge in a mortal world? One can say that the Temporal Temple can capture anyone they want in the mortal world. Trillions of living beings have been tortured to death. Even if a small minority became deities, they would still be controlled by them. The moment one is captured by them, it is too hard for them to regain their freedom. Dombush Shuang looked at Bloodblade. The Temporal Temple should not exist. Even if it can exist, it cannot wantonly abduct countless living beings across the cosmos. Bloodblade nodded after hearing that. What you said is logical. I agree. You came looking for me because you want me to act? Yes. The Temporal Island Lord controls space-time. If I were to speak, he would most likely not lower his head. But if teacher were to act, things would be different. Dombush Shuang said. Bloodblade nodded lightly. Back then, Yuan Shu and the rest were against it, but we could not do anything to the Temporal Island Lord. We could only negotiate with him to set down some rules to maintain the balance of the cosmos. But now, it's time to change. Bloodblade nodded. Let's do it this way. From today onwards, the Temporal Temple can only take away the souls of those who have already died. We will reconstruct their fleshy bodies and allow them to start a new life. All right. Dombush Shuang's eyes brightened. Those who had died were already finished. If they could start a new life, it would be a good thing. Then it's decided. Bloodblade nodded. With his current status, a single word from the Temporal Island Lord would have to listen to him obediently. If he did not listen, he would directly destroy the Temporal Temple. Teacher, I have always wanted to ask. Why did you build the Bloodshed Tavern back then? Dombush Shuang asked. Bloodblade's brows twitched. He laughed. You brat, there are two reasons why I built the Bloodshed Tavern in the deity world, abyss, and the material world. Firstly, assassins will never be eradicated. Since that's the case, I will set down some rules for the assassin industry. Secondly, and also the main reason, is because I built the Bloodshed Tavern. Countless assassins in the entire cosmos will go and kill, and I will be part of this karma. Every day and night, I will be subjected to endless karma. Slaughter, blood, hatred. All of this will temper my heart, allowing my comprehension of the Tao of destruction and Tao of bloodshed to deepen. Dombush Shuang was startled. For cultivation? Every day and night, countless karma would be placed on his body. Countless blood and wails would surround him. These days were simply torture. Go. Bloodblade said. Bloodblade opened his mouth, and Temporal Island Lord immediately became obedient. From now on, the Temporal Temple could only capture the souls of the dead. Many reincarnators who were captured previously had a chance to choose. They could choose their freedom. If they chose to continue being a reincarnator, they would be greatly rewarded. Time passed. Because of the birth of the Void God, there was an unparalleled existence protecting the entire cosmos. Hence, the cosmos became more peaceful. Everyone knew that they could leave the cosmos epoch after it ended. Without that sense of urgency, the relationship between the rulers became much better. Year passed. Dongbui Shuang brought an avatar of his disciple Little Chong 7 out, allowing Little Chong 7 to have a wider world to temper himself. As for his wife Jing Qiu, Dongbui Yu, Dongbui Qin Yao, his disciple Mo Chong Yun, disciple Jia Yun, and Qiu Qi Bai, Dongbui Shuang, they had all been sent to the Devil Mountain cosmos once, though they did not stay for more than 1,000,000 years. The longest was Mo Chong Yun, who stayed for 980,000 years. Naturally, 1,000,000 years in the cultivator cosmos was 3,000,000,000 years in the Devil Mountain cosmos. With the help of Dongbui Shui Ying's good friend Third Highness Jia Yun Lu, Jing Qiu and the others were given the best environment to cultivate. They could cultivate in other systems, and there were experts of other systems guiding them in the Devil Mountain cosmos. In the end, his daughter Dongbui Qin Yao spent a total of 900 million years cultivating, and she was the first to transcend. The other was his eldest disciple Mo Chong Yun. He spent 3 billion years before becoming a powerful existence. As for the others, they were stuck at the stage 4 world deity realm. Jing Qiu had cultivated in another Hexdao path, yet she could not transcend temporarily. Black Fog Sea, Dongbui Monarch Residence. The white-robed Dongbui Shuang was staring at the starry sky by himself. A figure suddenly appeared beside him. It was Jing Qiu. Snow Eagle, Jing Qiu said in a low voice. They won't be able to last much longer. Dongbui Shui Ying's body trembled. His father, mother, younger brother, Uncle Zong, Uncle Tong, and the others had all tried their best to cultivate to the deity realm. The lifespan of a deity was limited. Usually, it would be around 100 million years. A few days ago, his father and mother were about to reach the end of their lifespan. However, by relying on the Eden treasure to control the flow of time, they were waiting. They were waiting for Uncle Zong, Uncle Tong, and Dongbui Qin Shi. They wanted to travel together. Their mentality was very good, and they felt that they would be satisfied for the rest of their lives. Father, mother, Uncle Zong, Uncle Tong, Little Stone. Dongbui Shui Ying's heart was trembling. The most important people in his life were these few. But now, all of them were about to leave. They were about to leave for good. Dongbui Shuang felt an emptiness in his heart. On this day, Dongbui Shuang was filled with fear. But it still came. He once thought that he would be able to accept it calmly. But when the moment truly arrived, he discovered that his life was being sliced apart. His heart was being sliced apart. Pain, it was extremely painful. Come, let us head over, Dongbui Shuang said. Chapter 790. The Dongbo monarch estate occupied a vast area. Dongbui Lai, Mo Yanyu, Dongbui Qingshi, Zhongling, and Tong San were all living here. After all, they had become gods for over 10,000 years, and were unable to enter the world of the Xia people. The monarch estate had carved out a small area, and their residences were all very close to each other. Hoo! Dongbui Shuang and Jing Qiu walked out of the void, arriving at their parents' residence. Brother, sister-in-law, we've been waiting for you. Dongbui Qingshi was waiting at the door. Upon seeing them, his eyes lit up as he called out, Qingshi. Dongbui Shuang laughed. Both he and his brother had lived for far too long, but the memories of their childhood were still very clear. That wimpy kid who would lie on his chest, drooling and snoring, and the scenes of him and his brother relying on each other for survival. They would never be able to forget. Let's go. Dongbui Shuang walked over and hugged his brother. Today, you have to accompany me for a drink. Of course. Qingshi smiled, his smile extremely radiant. The two brothers walked into the house with their arms around each other's shoulders. Jing Qiu followed behind them, smiling as she watched the scene. She was very clear what this day meant to her husband. There were no servants around. If the servants were to see their dignified ruler hugging someone's shoulders, they would probably be stunned. Within the house, the tall and sturdy lion-headed lion man Uncle Tong San, the six-armed serpent-tailed serpent man Zhongling, the purple-robed serpent man Mo Yangyu, as well as the laughing Dongbui Lai, were chatting happily. They all sensed something and looked towards the door, only to see Dongbu Shuang and Qingshi walking in together. "Ha ha, the snow eagle is here!" Uncle Tong laughed, his voice extremely loud. "We were just waiting for you." Zhongling smiled as well. "Come, come, come! Brothers, please take a seat," Dongbu Lai urged. And Mo Yanyu also walked over to move the chairs. Dongbu Shuang glanced around. The layout of the house was very similar to his ancestral home, Snow Rock Castle. The dining table was long, and a group of people sat around it. As Dongbu Shuang grew stronger, it had been a long time since he sat around a table to eat and drink. "Everyone sit!" Dongbu Lai shouted. "Snow Eagle, Jing Qiu, the two of you sit here." Mother Mo Yangyu also arranged and urged. Soon, the group of people sat down. Dongbu Shuang and Jing Qiu were leaning against each other. On his left were Uncle Zong and Uncle Tong, while opposite Uncle Zong and Uncle Tong were Dongbu Lai and Mo Yangyu. Opposite Dongbu Shuang was his younger brother, Qingshi. No one sat at the head of the table. In the past, it was usually his father, Dongbu Lai, who sat at the head of the table. But this time, his father, Dongbu Lai, was sitting together with his mother, leaning against each other. "Today's food was cooked by me and you. Let's raise our cups first." Dongbu Lai smiled as he raised his cup. "It's been a long time since I ate father and mother's cooking." Dongbu Shuang also raised his cup. Everyone drank together. Zhongling finished his wine and put down his wine cup. "Drinking here reminds me of Snow Rock Castle. At that time, Tong San and I accompanied Shuang and Qingshi. At that time, Qingshi was still immature and only knew how to fool around. At that time, Shuang practiced his spear arts every day, to the point where he had to soak in a medicinal bath every day." "What do you mean I only know how to cause trouble?" Qingshi muttered. "Isn't that so?" Tong San, who was at the side, curled his lips. "Your brother was so tired every day. You even wanted your brother to accompany you to sleep at night. Luckily, Snow Eagle had a good temper. If you were in my Lion Man tribe, he would have thrown you aside." Qingshi also laughed. "I really don't dare to think about it. Back then, I thought that Snow Eagle would be amazing if he could become a transcendent. Who would have thought that he would surpass my imagination?" Zhongling said. "Back then, the sorcerer god and great demon god, who caused our Xia people's world to face a great calamity, also lost their lives. Now, Snow Eagle has become one of the peak existences in the deity world and abyss, and is ranked amongst the rulers." The others nodded. As they approached death, they could not help but recall their lives. In the past, they had thought that the dazzling existences were not worth mentioning at all. The great demon god had been dealt with long ago. Even the sorcerer god, who was the lord of the material world, had cultivated to become a stage 2 world deity. After Dongbu Shuang had become a ruler, he had easily killed him through karma. Cultivation can be said to be difficult. Dongbu Lai said. "Back then, I was brought to the Crimson Rock Mountain world by Snow Eagle. Only after receiving the best guidance did I become a transcendent. Afterwards, I was reborn many times, and a large number of treasures were used on me. Only then did I step into the deity realm with great difficulty. From then on, I no longer had any hope of becoming a world deity. Cultivation is truly difficult. If not for Snow Eagle, you wouldn't even be able to become a transcendent." And Mo Yanyu said, "In the Crimson Rock Mountain world, there were many times when you had fallen into desperate straits and called for your son's help. Just thinking about it makes me feel ashamed. What's there to be ashamed about? I called for Snow Eagle's help when I was in desperate straits. Is that wrong?" Dongbu Lai glared at her. Come, Snow Eagle, let us drink." Uncle Tong San picked up the flask of wine and drank with Shuang. He shook his big lion head, feeling quite pleased. "You've allowed me to come back to life, and even live for more than 100 million years. Haha, you've saved me, but I've created a Lion Man tribe." Dongbu Shuang laughed. "It's all because of you, Uncle Tong, that you are able to have so many children and grandchildren. The Lion Man tribe was too fertile. Because of Tong San, the Lion Man tribe became stronger." They formed a huge tribe, and had even entered several planets in the deity world. Everyone was chatting, but Dongbu Shuiying and Jing Qiu were listening attentively, and would occasionally say a few words. After eating for a long time, Dongbu Shuiying had also drunk a lot of wine. There were many large wine vats on the ground beside the dining hall. It's been a long time since I've drunk to my heart's content. Moreover, it's my good brother, my good sister, and Snow Eagle, Qing Shi, and Jing Qiu. Zongling's face was completely red as he laughed. This life of mine, Zongling, is worth it, truly worth it. Old brother. I can't take it anymore, I'll be the first to leave. Following the laughter, Zongling's body began to dissipate. Every bit of his divine power was disintegrating and collapsing. What, just like that, he completely dissipated. Wait for me. Tong San shouted. It's time to go. Mo Yangyu also put down her wine cup. Ah, you. Dongbo Lai looked at his wife beside him. In this life, I'm very lucky to have you by my side. Me too. Mo Yangyu smiled, her eyes filled with love. Dongbo Qingshi sat there and also smiled. Father, mother, Uncle Tong, let's go together. The road will be lively. Brother, let's go. Don't be sad, we're really happy. Hua Hua Hua. Tong San's drunken body began to dissipate. Dongbo Lai and Mo Yangyu held each other's hands and looked at each other. Dongbo Qingshi also smiled at Dongbo Shuiying. They no longer suppressed the collapse of their souls, allowing it to begin to collapse. Every bit of divine power was collapsing, and all of them were dissipating into the void. Dongbo Shuiying, who was holding a wine cup, watched silently. Little Shi too. Father, mother, Uncle Zong, Uncle Tong, you're all gone. You're all gone. Dongbo Shuiying's eyes flickered with tears. He sat there silently, not saying a word. The originally bustling house had now become very quiet. The long table was originally surrounded by a group of people, but now only Dongbo Shuiying and his wife were left. The other seats were empty. Jing Qiu wanted to say something, but she didn't know what to say. She could only silently accompany them. Silence. Dongbu Shuiying sat there silently for a long time. He didn't know what he was thinking. His mind seemed to be muddled and empty. Suddenly, waves of pain engulfed his entire body, engulfing his soul, causing Dongbu Shuiying's heart to feel very uncomfortable. Suddenly, a hand grabbed his hand and held it tightly. Dongbu Shuiying turned his head. His wife, Jing Qiu, was looking at him with concern. You still have us. Jing Qiu looked at him. Chapter 791. Dongbu Shuiying held onto his wife's hand. That's right, he still had them. But his wife had cultivated for a very long period in her previous life. She had cultivated for more than 2 billion years in the Devil Mountain cosmos, yet she was stuck at the stage 4 world deity bottleneck, and could not transcend. If she could not transcend, her soul would dissipate, and her body would die. In the following years, Dongbu Shuiying's black-robed avatar had always been cultivating at the starting ground. As for his true body, he would think of ways to help his wife and son. He would obtain some rare cultivation scriptures and cosmos treasures. He had even deliberately arranged for his wife and son to explore some historical remains while he guided them in the dark. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, it had been 1 billion years since Dongbu Shuiying became a ruler. Within the cultivator cosmos, Dongbu Shuiying's status was becoming more and more stable. In the current cosmos deity demon list created by Primal Master, the first was Bloodblade, the second was Monarch Dong Bo, the third was Purgatory Ruler, and the fourth was Monarch Green. Ha ha ha, Snow Eagle, you think you can injure me with this move? On a great land amidst the starry sky, 2 figures were currently facing each other. One was the crimson-robed Bloodblade, and the other was the white-robed Dongbu Shuiying. This land was personally refined by Bloodblade as an ordinary cultivation ground. Currently, in the entire cosmos, only Dongbu Shuiying could spar with him. Even if it was just a spar, the two of them had to control their strength. They could only display the laws and profound mysteries and compete with each other. They did not dare to use their full strength. The Walker's hidden secret had long been pushed to the 20th level. Such strength was something Dongwu Shuiying did not dare to casually display within the cosmos. Bloodblade was originally amazing. After stepping into the Void God realm for so many years, his strength had become even more unfathomable. Master, don't be too pleased with yourself. I wonder who it was that got kicked by me last time. Dongwu Shuiying teased. The two of them were purely sparring and competing in terms of techniques. Because they had 3 Chaos-grade absolute arts, Shadowless Heaven's Net, 3,000 Incarnations, and Divine Light Scripture, in addition to the large number of precious manuals left behind by the primogenitor Devil Mountain, Dongwu Shuiying's battle techniques were also extremely profound and powerful. Previously, he had relied on his illusionary realm and 3,000 incarnations to cause Bloodblade to suffer a loss. Of course, the Bloodblade forbade the use of all formations. They were only allowed to use laws of profound mysteries, which was why they were at a disadvantage. Bloodblade said calmly, "That was because I was careless." "Then take another attack from your disciple," Dongwu Shuiying said. "This is the 8th chapter of the Wind Ripple Path that your disciple has created." "Oh?" Bloodblade's eyes lit up. "Take this." Dongwu Shuiying's body abruptly turned blurry. In just a blur, a figure had already appeared in front of Bloodblade. There weren't any fluctuations, and the wind was still blowing in the surroundings. The grass and trees weren't affected at all, but Dongwu Shuiying's speed was so fast that even rulers were speechless. Bloodblade was startled and wanted to act. But at the instant he was about to act, Dongwu Shuiying's figure suddenly vanished, leaving behind a blur in the air as he appeared far away. What a fast speed! Bloodblade was inwardly shocked when he saw this. How powerful was his law domain? He could tell that Dongwu Shuiying didn't rely on his physical strength or speed. Instead, he relied on the laws of profound mysteries to achieve such a speed. All of a sudden, from afar, another Dongwu Shuiying appeared. Following which, another Dongwu Shuiying appeared behind Bloodblade. Right now, there were a total of 3 Dongwu Shuiying. All 3 of them flashed as they simultaneously attacked Bloodblade. All 3 of them had a spear in their hands, and their spears were similar to their movement techniques. Although it seemed like a simple stab, the spear merely left behind a blur in the air as it arrived before Bloodblade. Dang, dang, dang. Bloodblade used both his hands to block. How can this brat's speed be so fast? I can't even defend against him. Initially, I wanted to use this newly comprehended technique to intimidate him, but he forced me to use it first. Boom! Countless blood-colored blades shot out from Bloodblade's body, instantly destroying everything in his surroundings. Dongwu Shuiying was so frightened that he hurriedly retreated. The countless blood-colored blades revolved around Bloodblade, forming a gigantic sphere. This sphere was so natural that it felt like it was the sun itself, causing Dongwu Shuiying to exclaim in shock. "How is it?" Bloodblade chuckled. "Teacher, you did not use it the previous time." Dongwu Shuiying was slightly startled. Previously, my Tao of Bloodblade had just reached the Void Origin realm, and I had yet to consolidate it. Now that I have cultivated for a period, it is naturally different. Bloodblade said. He felt some lingering fear. Without using the array's Void God energy and physical strength, he had nearly lost in a competition of laws and profound mysteries. This disciple of his was amazing. Dongwu Shuiying sighed inwardly. A Void God was indeed a Void God. Without relying on the Walker's hidden secret, it was too difficult to defeat him. He had 3 primal chaos-ranked absolute arts, allowing him to unleash a strength that far surpassed ordinary rulers. But it was still useless. But he was curious too. If he were to use his full strength, he did not know how far he could push his teacher. Ultimately, his strongest technique was still the Walker's hidden secret. But his teacher's strongest technique was still the hex system. Furthermore, it would be even more amazing once he used his Void God energy. "Teacher," Dongwu Shuiying said, "there's a matter that I have to request of teacher. Haha, currently, other than me, no one is your opponent in the cosmos. You have something to request of me?" Bloodblade chuckled. Say it. I hope that teacher can help protect my loved ones. Dongwu Shuang said. You want me to help protect them? Bloodblade felt puzzled. What about you? This disciple of his was a ruler, and had 3 bodies. I am preparing to leave the cosmos, Dongwu Shuang said. I'm going to enter the primal chaos void. Enter the primal chaos void? Bloodblade was startled. How can you enter without becoming a void god? Dongwu Shuang nodded. I have a way. Gu Qianluo relied on the primal chaos flying ship to travel through the primal chaos void. I have my own way too. He had thought about it for a very long time. The departure of his father, mother, Uncle Zong, Uncle Tong, and his little brother had indeed stimulated him because they were his loved ones. During the recent 1 billion years, he had been helping his wife Jingqiu and his son in hopes that they could transcend. But transcending was too difficult. Dongwu Shuang could only provide external help. In the end, he still had to rely on himself to break through. 1 billion years had passed, yet his wife Jingqiu had yet to break through. Dongwu Shuang was afraid that day would come. He could not accept such an outcome. Cultivation, what was it for? Becoming powerful? Unparalleled? Ever since Dongwu Shuang was young, he had cultivated for his family. If his loved ones were not around, what was the point of cultivating to become stronger? Even if he was alive, he would just be a walking corpse. Maybe other rulers and experts had once felt the pain of losing their loved ones, but over the long years, these experts had gradually placed their focus on cultivation. But Dongwu Shuang could not do it. Perhaps there might be a day when he focused on cultivation over time so that he could forget about his loved ones. But that path was not what he wanted. If he stayed in the cultivator cosmos, there would be no dangers, no fortuitous encounters, and no experts. His improvement speed would be very slow. He could only walk out and enter a vaster world. Only then would he be able to grow even faster. Moreover, he would be able to obtain more treasures and external items that could aid him in cultivation. This would greatly increase the chances of Jingqiu and the rest transcending. Are you really going to head out? Bloodblade asked. Amen. Dongwu Shuang nodded. Where to? Bloodblade asked. 7-star Oceanic Sacred World. Dongwu Shuang replied. Are you still planning to return? Bloodblade asked. He was different from Dongwu Shuang. The witchcraft system researched a myriad of things. He was not in a rush and patiently cultivated. He would only leave when the cosmos epoch was about to end. Moreover, he wanted to leave with his clansmen. He could not leave as he pleased. Before the end of the cosmos epoch, I will return, Dongwu Shuang replied. According to my senses, this cosmos epoch should have about 1,360 billion years left, Bloodblade said. I will return within 1 trillion years, Dongwu Shuang said. 1 trillion years. A very long time. Only with sufficient time would Dongwu Shuang have the confidence to find treasures that could allow his family to transcend. As for his family's lifespan? If there was no hope of breaking through, he could enter the Eden world to continue living. Within the Eden world, time was maintained at an extremely slow speed. It was not difficult to slow it down to 1/10,000th of a second. To Dongwu Shuang, the energy consumed was not considered much. His wife and son had spent 100 million years within the Eden world. 1 trillion years might have passed in the outside world. By the time he returned, the situation would be completely different. It would not be like this, helplessly watching as they approached the end of their lifespans. You are the ruler, yet you want to leave the cosmos? Bloodblade shook his head. The primal chaos void is extremely dangerous. I understand. Dongwu Shuang nodded. The Void Walker inheritance had long since informed him of the information from the outside world. Why do you not cultivate within the cosmos until the end of the cosmos epoch? With your comprehension ability, you might not be any weaker than the ancestor devil, Bloodblade said. When that time comes, there will be very few who can threaten you. For my family, Dongwu Shuang said. Bloodblade was startled. Family? A figure appeared in the depths of his memories. It had been too long. Back then, it was because of the relationship between Dongbush Shuang and his wife that he made an exception and accepted him as a disciple. I understand. Bloodblade nodded. Back then, he had tried all sorts of methods to allow his wife to become a stage 1 world deity. In the end, his wife's soul had dissipated and she had died. If only his wife could become a stage 4 world deity, he might have done everything he could to allow his wife to transcend. He understood Dongbush Shuiying's thoughts. Thus, he did not stop him. Chapter 792. Within the grass hut and the starting ground, the violet-robed Dongbush Shuiying opened his eyes. He had been cultivating here for the past 1,000,000,000 years. Looking around, he was incomparably familiar with the interior of the grass hut. He lightly shook his head with a smile. It is time to leave. He stood up and walked to the door. Pushing open the wooden door, he saw a white-haired old man seated cross-legged outside. This made Dongbush Shuiying sigh inwardly. This white-haired old man had been guarding outside the door for as long as he cultivated. Senior, Dongbush Shuiying said. Dongbush Shuiying, why did you come out? The white-haired old man was slightly startled. I am preparing to take the ruler rank trial, Dongbush Shuiying said. Before leaving the cosmos, he wanted to take the final trial. If he could pass it, there might be some gifts left behind by forefather Tianyu that would give him a pleasant surprise. It might even help his wife and children. The white-haired old man was startled. You are going to take the ruler rank trial now? Dongbush Shuiying, I have to remind you that the ruler rank trial is the final and most difficult trial in the starting ground. The moment you pass it, you will become the core golden-robed disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple. The Great Void Heaven Temple will also nurture you with all their might. But correspondingly, the difficulty of the trial will be extremely high. In the 7-star oceanic sacred world, the Great Void Heaven Temple has a fixed number of 10 golden-robed disciples. Every time there is a great battle, a large number of violet-robed disciples will challenge the trial. Only the strongest 10 will become the core golden-robed disciples. Every single golden-robed disciple can surpass a realm and kill a void god at the ruler realm. Oh? Dongbush Shuiying was startled. A ruler surpassing a realm and killing a void god? One had to know that there was a huge gap between true god and void god. Even though Dongbush Shuiying thought highly of himself, and even cultivated the Void Walker system, and the Void Walker system was a system that gave him a huge advantage in the early stages, he only felt that he could fight against a new void god. He did not dare think of killing a void god as a ruler. The Great Void Heaven Temple has many ordinary sovereigns, over 100 violet-robed disciples, and a fixed number of 10 gold-robed disciples. No matter how monstrous the sovereigns are, they will always be the 10 strongest. The white-haired old man said. Because you were born in the cosmos, you have passed the test of the starting ground. If you pass and become a golden-robed disciple, then you can temporarily enjoy the various benefits of being a golden-robed disciple. However, once you reach the 7-star oceanic sacred world, there will be an internal challenge every 1,000,000,000 years. You must participate in it. If you can't get into the top 10, you will be demoted to a purple-clothed disciple. Dongbush Shuiying nodded lightly. Also, because this is not the Great Void Heaven Temple, even if you become a golden-clothed disciple, you will only be able to enjoy a portion of the benefits of being a golden-clothed disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple. The white-haired old man said. Of course, you will be able to enjoy those benefits once you go to the 7-star oceanic sacred world. Firstly, in the cosmos, the cultivation resources are inferior to the 7-star oceanic sacred world. Secondly, the benefits obtained would be relatively weaker. Therefore, the difficulty of the test was lower than the one in the 7-star oceanic sacred world. Over there, it was a competition between disciples. As for the starting ground, it has prepared a fixed opponent for you. As long as you kill it, you will become a golden-clothed disciple. Kill it? Who is it? Dongbush Shuiying asked. A void god. A slightly weaker void god. The white-haired old man said. The golden-clothed disciples in the seven-star oceanic sacred world can kill ordinary void gods. This kind of extremely weak void god is much easier to kill. But no matter what, it is still a void god. I advise you to cultivate for a while more. Your cultivation period is still too short. The white-haired old man advised. Dongbu Shuang was not confident anymore. Killing a slightly weaker void god? And the difficulty had been lowered? He felt that the golden-clothed disciple of the great void heaven temple was much stronger than that Gu Qianluo. Gu Qianluo was also one of the sacred sons under the ancestor bone throne, though he was clearly weaker. The most dazzling expert in the laws and profound mystery system was indeed terrifying. I still want to try, Dongbu Shuang said. Try. You only have a single chance. If you fail, you will be chased out. The white-haired old man advised again. There's no need to say any more. Dongbu Shuang shook his head. Regardless of whether he succeeded or failed, he would leave this cosmos after the battle. The white-haired old man saw that he could not persuade Shuang, and could only helplessly say, All right. I'll bring you over. You are truly too confident. Under the guidance of the white-haired old man, Dongbu Shuang entered a vast space. This space was filled with black soil. This is a slightly weaker void god puppet refined by forefather. The white-haired old man said. It is completely an imitation of a real void god. After killing it, it will undergo incubation, and 3 days later, it will be revived. Naturally, you just have to kill it. It is a life form that lives in the primal chaos void, called the 100 Leading Howls. You might not have heard of it before, but you have to be careful. Don't be defeated right from the start. I am still looking forward to the birth of a golden-clothed disciple. Chapter 793. The 20th level of Walker's hidden secret made Dongbu Shui Ying's void evasive maneuver extremely formidable. He could move stealthily to the side of the enemy. Adding on the concealment of the mirage world, it was even more formidable. At least, the 100 Leading Howls did not discover him. A silver spear suddenly appeared from nothingness. It pierced towards the eye of one of the heads of the 100 Leading Howls. The spear was like a blurred shadow. It was too fast and too sudden. But being at the void god level, the 100 Leading Howls could still instinctively move its head. The spear that was originally piercing towards the eye had pierced into the face of that head. Its skin was extremely tough. It was born with many tiny vein patterns, causing Dongbu Shuang to feel as if his spear was piercing into nothingness. Furthermore, there were all sorts of chaotic energy guiding it. Pooh! A small part of its face was pierced through. Its skin was broken. As the spear was pulled out, black blood splattered. Roar! The 100 Leading Howls roared even more violently, and the bloody mouths of the 100 heads spat out a poisonous fog. The poisonous fog combined with the surrounding darkness domain to corrode and destroy everything in its path. The disguised incarnation in the distance could not withstand it, and was directly dissolved. The power of this domain even invaded the mirage world. Even though there is a huge realm gap between true God and void God, I have reached the 20th level of Walker's hidden secret. My strength is sufficient to threaten void god life. Even though the first spear was just to check its strength without using any killing moves, even if I did, I would at most injure it. Within the mirage world, Snow Eagle looked at the 100 Leading Howls. He could not help but shake his head inwardly. The intelligence isn't fake. This 100 Leading Howls might be foolish, but to kill it, I have to force it to spit out more poisonous fog, causing its strength to fall. Only then can I kill all of its heads. The way to kill the 100 Leading Howls was to destroy all of its heads. This was considered relatively simple. Some powerful void gods like Bloodblade, who specialized in researching the myriad existences witchcraft system, would transform their bodies to become extremely powerful. They could be said to have an undying body, and their survival capabilities were much stronger than that of the 100 Leading Howls. The world was dark. Poisonous fog pervaded everywhere. The 100 Leading Howls floated in the sky. Countless tentacles enveloped everywhere. Its 100 heads swept across the place, yet it did not continue spitting out poisonous fog. Dongwu Shuang appeared. However, his body was faintly discernible. He could feel the terrifying pressure from the dark domain outside. This pressure was enough to kill Monarch Green and the Purgatory ruler. After all, the bodies of Monarch Black and the others were weaker than the 11th level of the Walker's hidden secret. "You think you can kill me with this?" Dongwu Shuang laughed out loud. Instantly, countless blood-colored ripples appeared around him. The blood-colored ripples spread out in all directions. Each ripple was like a silk thread. Countless blood-colored ripples crisscrossed as if they were a single entity, attacking in all directions. Slaughter Domain. His Tao of Slaughter and Tao of Ripple had long reached the ruler realm. Moreover, he had comprehended the chaos-grade absolute art, Shadowless Heaven's Net. He had fused some of the ripple manipulation methods into the Slaughter Domain, causing the might of the Slaughter Domain to skyrocket. Although the Slaughter Domain was trying its best to break through, it was still shattered by the suppression of the surrounding darkness domain. Void! Dongwu Shuang also had the ability to control the void, and the might of the void manipulation at the 20th level was equally terrifying. Hong! The void energy fused perfectly with the Slaughter Domain, suppressing everything in all directions. Hong hong hong! The blood-colored ripple domain was doing its best to attack in all directions, while the darkness domain was continuously suppressing it, causing the Slaughter Domain to be maintained at a range of 50 kilometers. Who would have thought that even with the fusion of the Slaughter Domain and the void energy, I am still at a disadvantage in a clash of domains? Dongwu Shuang thought. The gap between a ruler and a void god is ultimately too big. The white-haired old man who was watching the battle by the side was startled. A ruler could actually clash with a void god using his domain. Even though it was a slightly weaker void god, it was still amazing. Die for me! The 100 leading howls roared out in an unknown language. Nevertheless, Dongwu Shuang understood what the other party meant the moment he heard it. The 100 leading howls continued roaring out poisonous fog. As the dark void and the poisonous fog fused together, it seemed to become stronger. Furthermore, chi-chi-chi sounds could be heard as it strangely corroded Dongwu Ying's Slaughter Domain. The poisonous fog can corrode my domain? Dongwu Shuang felt fear inwardly. This little technique is useless against me. Dongwu Shuang was still laughing, provoking the other party. When the 100 leading howls turned into an illusion and charged over with a large number of tentacles, Dongwu Shuang would rely on the Mirage World and Void teleportation to escape. He provoked the other party time and time again so that the 100 leading howls could not touch him. Occasionally, Dongwu Shuang would even use his incarnations to sneak an attack. He would even use his darts to sneak an attack. He would even use his true body to sneak an attack. But every time he did so, he would use part of his strength to prevent the 100 leading howls from detecting him. These sneak attacks could barely break the skin of the 100 leading howls, but it was sufficient to make them even more berserk. This weak ruler could actually escape so well. Since it could not chase after this enemy, it would spit out more poisonous fog in hopes of using the domain to trap the enemy. The white-haired old man had been observing the battle from the side. He watched as the 100 leading howls gradually weakened after spitting out more poisonous fog. Dongwu Shuang, who had been hiding his strength all this while, finally made sure that he could kill the 100 leading howls with sneak attacks. Only then did he unleash his full strength and execute his wind ripple path. His attacks were clearly much stronger than before. After successfully killing one of the 100 leading howls' heads, the 100 leading howls finally regained its senses. This damnable ruler was actually hiding his strength. At this time, the countless tentacles of the 100 leading howls also started to defend with all their might. However, Dongwu Ying's movement technique was too powerful. Although killing the heads became more difficult, it was still possible if he spent a little more time. Time and time again, he launched sneak attacks and killed the heads with great difficulty. When all the heads were killed, the corpse of the 100 leading howls fell from the sky. At that moment, Dongwu Shuang heaved a sigh of relief. This battle lasted for 2 whole days. 90% of the time was spent killing the heads because it took a long time to kill each head. You won. The white-haired old man chuckled as he looked at Dongwu Shuang. But you should understand that if not for Master giving this 100 leading Howl's puppet an order to kill you with all its might, it would have been much harder. If it were an ordinary battle, it would have been much harder for you to induce it to spit out so much poisonous fog. Furthermore, it would have long escaped with all its might when it discovered that something was amiss. This region of space is too small, and it can't escape at all. I understand. Dongwu Shuang nodded. Because this was a trial. That was why the puppet, the 100 leading Howls, had long received the order to kill the ruler who came to take the trial. That was why it was so easily lured out of the poisonous fog. Fortunately, I have the intelligence beforehand. Otherwise, it would be much harder for me to win. This is still a slightly weaker void god. Dongwu Shuang had some understanding of himself. No matter what, I am still a void god. Being able to reach this stage means that I have the strength to fight against those of a higher realm. If I want to reach the strength of those golden-robed disciples in the 7-star oceanic sacred world, I still have to improve further. He cultivated the Void Walker system, yet it was so difficult for him to pass through the trial. He should not look down on other cultivators. That grass house at the center. That is where Forefather once stayed for a long time. It is also a place that only rulers can enter after passing through the trial, the white-haired old man said. Amen. Dongwu Shuang pushed open the wooden door and entered. He stayed for a long time before coming out. When he came out, he was still wearing a golden robe. His eyes were filled with slight disappointment. The benefits of being a golden-robed disciple were huge. It had broadened his horizons. They treated the golden-robed disciples with great importance and care, not any less than how Voidwalker Gucci treated his inheritors. After all, Voidwalker Gucci was a lone ranger and did not know how to teach disciples. Instead, the Great Void Heaven Temple was more well-rounded. It's a pity that I did not manage to help Jingqiu and Yuer. Dongwu Shuang was slightly disappointed. Actually, thinking about it, it was natural. The Great Void Heaven Temple would naturally help golden-robed disciples. Why would they help a Stage 4 world deity transcend? What void god weapon do you need? The white-haired old man chuckled. Spear, Dongwu Shuang said. There are only 2 spears. I'll bring them over for you to choose, the white-haired old man said. Dongwu Shuang nodded. Weapons were external objects. What was truly important was what he had obtained back in the grass house. Black Fog Sea, Dongwu Monarch Residence. There were very few who knew about his departure from the cosmos. Even his good friend Qiqiu Bai, Paragon Huiqing, Senior Apprentice Brother Huiming, Qihua Laozu, and the rest, Dongwu Shuang only told them. I have an important matter to attend to and will only return after a long time. As for where he was going, he did not say. However, he did tell his wife and children. Their family of 4 was currently walking together within Monarch Dongwu residence. Regarding Dongwu Shuiying's departure from the cosmos, his son, Dongwu Yu, had strongly objected. I can transcend by myself. Father, there's no need for you to risk your life. Even Jingqiu objected at the start. Snow Eagle, we've been together for many years. Even if I die in the end, I'll be satisfied. There's no need for you to risk your life for me. Dongwu Shuang, however, did not waver at all. Jingqiu and Yu were able to face death calmly and did not want him to take the risk. How could he watch as all of this happened? Without putting in any effort? He could not do it. With Dongwu Shuiying's temperament, Jingqiu and Dongwu Yu knew that they could not persuade him otherwise. They could only accept it and cherish their days together. I'll definitely return before this cosmos epic ends. Dongwu Shuang laughed. Jingqiu, Dongwu Yu, and Dongwu Qingyao were all worried. It was even more dangerous outside. I'm a golden-robed disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple. I won't die so easily. Dongwu Shuang laughed. He had already told his wife and son about the existence of the Great Void Heaven Temple. However, he told them to keep it a secret. All right, it's time to go. Dongbu Shuang said. At this moment, two other figures appeared. They were the other two bodies. The three bodies instantly fused into one. After leaving the cosmos, without the protection of the cosmos, one would be cleansed by the laws of the entire primal chaos void. One would need to have a complete life in order to survive in the primal chaos void. Therefore, when Gu Qianluo was killed, it was a true death. That was why Gu Qianluo felt so much despair. Who? With a single step, he appeared in the air above the Dongbua monarch residence. Jingqiu, Dongbua Yu, and Dongbua Qingyao all raised their heads. Another figure appeared in the air. It was Blood Blade, who had been waiting in the surroundings. Snow Eagle, be careful. Leave the cosmos matters to me, Blood Blade said. He knew the route to the seven-star oceanic sacred world. He knew that it was a long and dangerous journey. However, after knowing that his disciple had become a golden-robed disciple, he had some confidence in his disciple. Amen. Dongbua Shuang waved his hand, causing a crack to appear. Beyond the crack was the vast primal chaos void. Dongbua Shuang turned back to look at his wife, son, and daughter. He had left behind everything that could be left behind. I'll be back, Dongbua Shuang thought. He then smiled at his family. Following that, south, he directly flew out along the crack in the cosmos membrane. This scene startled Blood Blade slightly. He actually entered the primal chaos void with his body? Usually, only void gods could do it, yet a ruler could do it too? This disciple of mine has indeed met with extraordinary opportunities. Dongbua Shuang flew into that vast primal chaos void. The cosmos membrane gradually healed. Jingqiu, Dongbua Yu, and Dongbua Qingyao looked up. Jingqiu's eyes were already filled with tears. She had always been afraid that Dongbua Shuang would not return. I'll wait for you. Wait for you to return, Jingqiu thought. Chapter 794. As Dongbua Shuang flew into the primal chaos void, he could sense an invisible law sweeping past him. He knew that this was the law of the primal chaos void. After entering this place, one would no longer be protected by the cosmos. Only lifeforms with perfect souls would be able to survive in the primal chaos void. Of course, they would also have to be able to withstand the vile environment of the primal chaos void. Chi. The primal chaos void looked like a piece of nothingness, but it was actually a mixture of countless energies. Some of them were terrifyingly destructive, and were extremely cold. Just this coldness alone could easily freeze some rulers to death. However, Dongbua Shuang was like a fish in water in such an environment. After all, he was a void walker, and could survive in the primal chaos void after reaching the 11th level. Now that he was at the 20th level, it was naturally easier for him. Cosmos! Dongbua Shuang turned around and looked behind him. It was a boundless existence, the cosmos. This was his hometown cosmos. It was huge, but it also protected the countless lifeforms within. Compared to the primal chaos void, the cosmos was much safer. In this vast primal chaos void, it is truly hard to tell the direction. Dongbua Shuang looked at the cold primal chaos void and released his senses towards the void. Instantly, his senses spread out. In terms of range, it was probably 100 times the size of the cosmos. With such a huge range, he could clearly sense that the formless energy within the primal chaos void was moving extremely slowly. It was as though the entire primal chaos void had a core. With that core as the origin, the entire primal chaos void was expanding in all directions. It was expanding continuously. The ancient saint world is over there. Dongbua Shuang nodded his head slightly. Based on the direction of the primal chaos void's expansion, he was able to deduce the location of the ancient saint world. Ancient saint world. It was also one of the 5 great sacred worlds. According to the legends, the ancient saint world was the origin of everything. Later on, the strongest existences in the ancient saint world who had reached the pinnacle of cultivation had engaged in a terrifying war. This war caused the ancient saint world to explode, and the remaining ancient saint world was probably only 1/100th of the original ancient saint world. It was also because of that war that the primal chaos void began to expand in all directions. The countless shattered pieces formed universes, primal chaos lands that were smaller than universes, and even smaller ones that were no longer suitable for life. As for those existences who had reached the pinnacle of cultivation, they also dispersed and began to open up new sacred worlds. However, over the long years, due to the pinnacle of cultivation, there were still sacred worlds that were destroyed. Currently, there were only 5 sacred worlds. The ancient sacred world and the 7-star oceanic sacred world were among them. Existences who have cultivated to the final realm are truly terrifying. Shuang sighed inwardly. They are existences who could destroy the sacred world. I have obtained an absolute art that can destroy a sacred world. There was indeed an absolute art currently existing in the mind of Shuang. This was a temple protection absolute art that he was qualified to acquire after becoming a golden-robed disciple of the great void heaven temple. The heaven Ying saint world of the Ying sect. Dynasty Ying Temple. Dongbua Shuang chose 13 Swords of Armageddon. Out of the 3 palace guarding absolute arts, it was the only one that was more compatible with Dongbua Shui Ying's laws of profound mysteries. This was because this palace guarding absolute art belonged to the Slaughter Dao. The 1-3 apocalyptic swords was created by the palace master of the great void heaven temple, Forefather Tianyu. Extremely terrifying and powerful. The first sword was so profound and complex that not even 1 in 100 hegemons could learn it. Those who could learn it were those with great comprehension abilities. The moment they grasped it, with this sword technique, they could transcend realms and fight against ordinary void gods with their ruler bodies. In other words, with just his swordsmanship alone, he would be able to rival the current Dongbua Shuang. The main reason why Dongbua Shuang was so strong was because of the Void Walker system. His self-created windstorm path was far inferior to the first sword. The second sword was even more terrifying. Rulers had almost no hope of grasping it. In the history of the Great Void Heaven Temple, there was only one Tao of Sword Genius who grasped it at the ruler realm. Others who comprehended this palace guarding absolute art could not even comprehend it at the Void God Origin Birth realm. One could see how difficult it was. That Tao of Sword Genius relied on the second sword at the ruler realm, to sweep across all void gods at the Origin Birth realm, easily killing ordinary void gods. He could even fight against those at the Void Unity realm. Naturally, other than that person, there was no one else who could grasp the second sword at the ruler realm. This sword technique was stronger with each sword. The final 13th sword was also worthy of its name. It could shatter a sacred world into pieces. Being in existence at the final realm of the laws and profound mysteries system, Forefather Tianyu had created 3 palace guarding absolute arts. He was so powerful that he was relatively famous across the 5 great sacred worlds. Others like Ancestor Bone who were similarly at the final realm of cultivation were weaker by an entire level. According to the cultivation realm, void gods were split into 3 levels. They were the Origin Birth realm, Unity realm, and Primal Chaos realm. In the vast Primal Chaos void and sacred world, most void gods were at the Void Origin Birth realm. The majority of void gods were at this level. Comparatively speaking, existences at the Unity realm were very rare. Primal Chaos realm? Under the situation where the final realm of cultivation did not appear, they were the most terrifying existences. Primal Chaos realm was also a realm that the Lake Heart Island Master obtained in the cosmos. It was simply unfathomable. Without facing powerful enemies to temper himself, and without sufficient guidance, the Lake Heart Island Master reached the Primal Chaos realm within the cosmos. Even Voidwalker Gucci was dumbstruck. Even the creator of the cosmos, Forefather Tianyu, did not expect this. And beyond that, that was the final realm of cultivation, Cosmos God. Cosmos gods were not divided into levels. Reaching the Cosmos God realm was the final realm of all systems. Their bodies were like a cosmos. Just like the laws and profound mystery system, the inner world had transformed into a cosmos. Hence, any casual move of theirs could gather the energy of the entire cosmos. To them, destroying a cosmos was as easy as raising their hand. Existences at this level were the final realm. There were very few of them. The number of cosmos gods in each of the 5 great sacred worlds could be counted with one's fingers. Like the ancient sacred world, there were only 2 cosmos gods. Reaching this level of strength, it was rare for them to act because the moment they did, it would be a huge matter. It was even normal for them to destroy a sacred world. Dongbua Shuang diverted a strand of his concentration to control the void. He proceeded with the ultra-long distance maneuver through the void. His entire being was in a state of maneuver at all times. Not just the starting ground or the Void Walker inheritance, both gave him the complete primal chaos void diagram, of which his hometown cosmos was naturally marked out. Knowing the location of his hometown cosmos, and ascertaining the direction of the ancient sacred world, Dongbua Shuang naturally knew where he should head towards. As he traveled at an ultra-high speed, 99% of Dongbua Shuang's concentration was placed on comprehending the less than 13 apocalyptic swords. After all, this was absolutely one of the apex absolute arts in the laws and profound mysteries system. He had barely obtained it, and naturally, he was doing his best to comprehend it. According to his estimations, it would take him more than 2 billion years to reach the 7-star oceanic sacred world if his journey was smooth. That was considered close. The 7-star oceanic sacred world was the closest sacred world to his hometown cosmos. Naturally, the prerequisite was that his journey was smooth. This primal chaos void was filled with all sorts of dangers. Even if he could survive, he would usually be delayed. Chapter 795. Because he was a void walker, it was much easier for Dongbua Shuang to travel in the primal chaos void than most void gods. He could easily sense some troubles from afar and evade them easily. But the journey was indeed lonely, and he rarely saw any living beings. Those he could sense from afar were usually void creatures. Void creatures were creatures born in the primal chaos void. They had all sorts of shapes and sizes, and there were even some rare humanoid void creatures. Void creatures that could be born in such a vile environment were innately powerful. Most would reach the strength of true god rulers the moment they reached adulthood. Furthermore, their bodies were exceptionally suited to survive in the primal chaos void. But because they were innately powerful, it was hard for them to improve. After all, their strength came from their innate talents, and most of them did not know how to cultivate. Even if they obtained the cultivation method, it was hard for them to improve. Like the 100 leading howls he once fought at the starting ground, it was originally a void creature. Like the creator of the Void Walker system, and also the creator of the Walker's hidden secret, Void Primogenitor, he was also a life form born in the primal chaos void, and was also a type of void creature. But his talent was much more heaven-defying. Currently, he was one of the 3 cosmos gods within the Eastern Unicorn sacred world of the 5 great sacred worlds. In terms of strength and status, he was slightly higher than forefather Tianyu, who, as he continued traveling through the primal chaos void, Dongbua Shuang spent most of his time comprehending the less than 13 apocalyptic swords. Because he had left the cosmos after obtaining the palace's ultimate art, he had only begun to comprehend it along the way. He had originally believed that with his own experience and comprehension ability, especially since he had cultivated in seclusion for 1 billion years after becoming a ruler, and had accumulated so much, and he was very confident in his comprehension ability, it shouldn't be difficult for him to learn the first sword. But in reality, over 50 million years, and I have yet to learn it. Dongbua Shuang shook his head helplessly. Even though I have comprehended more than half, there are still some bottlenecks I have yet to comprehend. If there were an opponent to fight with me, I might be able to discover the profound mysteries of this sword technique faster. Even though it was a sword technique, the Daos were interlinked. After learning the first sword, it was much easier for him to transform it into a spear technique. However, it did help me a lot in comprehending the Slaughter Dao. Dongbua Shuang was still very happy. Even though he did not completely understand the first sword of the 13 apocalyptic swords, it allowed him to have a more thorough understanding of the Massacre Dao and a more solid foundation. Just as Dongbu Shuang was trying to comprehend the palace's ultimate technique, the vast chaotic void in front of him suddenly twisted. Not good. Dongbu Shuiying's face changed drastically. He hurriedly tried to use the void evasive maneuver to escape. However, the surrounding void energy was completely distorted, and he couldn't control it at all. At this moment, he was like a tiny ant trapped in a whirlpool. No matter how he struggled, it was futile. As for flying, the surrounding void energy was distorted, making it difficult for him to even move. Looks like we're in trouble. Dongbu Shuang did not panic at all. Just like how the ocean would have tides and whirlpools, the void of chaos would have some anomalies as well. However, with the Voidwalker's survivability, most of them would be able to survive. It was just that sometimes, they would find themselves in a predicament. For example, being sucked into a certain sealed void? Everything was possible. The surrounding primal chaos void, which could be filled by 1,000,000 cosmoses, was distorting. Everything was collapsing towards the center, and at the center of the collapse, a colorful halo could be seen. That is? Dongbu Shuang was also following the collapse of the primal chaos void. He was being sucked towards the center. The closer he got, the clearer he could see. At the center, there were many layers of colorful spatial folds. It was as if different spaces were being folded and connected here. Void corridor? Dongbu Shuang recognized it. Void corridor. It was a resonance formed between different regions of the vast primal chaos void. It was collapsing and connecting with one another. Many regions that were extremely far away from one another were connected at this moment. There were some powerful cultivators who could form a resonance even though they were separated by a great distance, allowing them to travel from one location to another. Even if the distance between two sacred worlds was far, they could travel there instantaneously. But to achieve this, one had to have a harsh requirement on their combat power and cultivation system. For instance, the laws and profound mysteries system, the ancestor-mother religion system, and other cultivation systems could not achieve this even if they reached the pinnacle. Every system had its own specialties. Only unique cultivation systems that had reached an extremely high level could achieve this. And now, such a scene had appeared naturally in the primal chaos void. I'd rather it not appear. Dongbu Shuang might be startled, but he felt helpless and uneasy at the same time. Void corridor. It might send him to the boundary of the sacred world, but at the same time, it might send him into a predicament. It might even send him into a terrifying place. It depended on his luck. I hope I'm not too unlucky. Dongbu Shuang was holding on to a talisman. Being a golden-robed disciple, he had 3 life-saving talismans. The Great Void Heaven Temple placed great importance on the safety of the golden-robed disciples. If they met with a predicament they could not resist, the life-saving talismans would greatly increase their chances of survival. Hua! The void distorted and collapsed, causing the incomparably tiny Shuang to similarly distort and collapse into that colorful void corridor. Dongbu Shuang could only feel the surrounding space being squeezed and pulled. The flow of time was also changing strangely. His surroundings were filled with colors. Dongbu Shuang could not control his body and could only drift along with the flow. He was praying in his heart, I shouldn't be that unlucky. I should reach another location normally, and the chances of me falling into a predicament should be very low. He was consoling himself. The void corridor, which had been distorting and unstable, finally collapsed. Shuang, who was stuck in one of the regions, along with the collapse of a void fold, had regained its normal primal chaos void. The surrounding void gradually regained its normalcy. The originally distorted primal chaos void gradually calmed down and regained its calm. Dongbu Shuang looked in all directions with slight astonishment. It was a vast expanse. The cosmos that he could barely see in one direction was no longer there. I'm no longer at my previous position. Dongbu Shuang did not find it strange. If he could return to his original position after passing through the void corridor, that would be a miracle. The most crucial thing now is to figure out where I am. Dongbu Shuang pondered. Even though he could deduce the direction of the ancient sacred world, It was useless to just know a direction. He had to find a point of reference. Fortunately, the void map left behind by my teacher Gu Qi is extremely complete. The 5 great sacred worlds are marked out in detail. Let's begin. Dongbush Shuang casually chose a direction before moving through the void. He had already made up his mind before leaving his hometown. After all, there would always be some twists and turns along the way. As long as he was alive, everything would be fine. And then? Very soon, Dongbush Shuang discovered a huge land in the distant primal chaos void. His eyes brightened. Primal chaos land? The most primitive ancient sacred world had once exploded due to a great war. Some of the fragments had turned into cosmos, and some had turned into smaller primal chaos lands. Naturally, existences at the void god primal chaos realm had the strength to create a primal chaos land. The primal chaos land was sufficient for the lifeforms within to reproduce and survive. But it was relatively weaker in terms of protection. The cosmos forbade all external void gods from entering. But the primal chaos land did not forbid it. Because those who could travel in the primal chaos void were usually at least void gods. It was rare for someone like Gu Qian Luo who drove the primal chaos flying ship or someone like Dongbush Shuang. Void gods could not enter the cosmos either. In the vast primal chaos void, there were many cosmos, and one could not tell the difference on the surface. Thus, they did not have any special names. Instead, it was the primal chaos land that could be entered. Thus, most would have a name. Let's go and see what this primal chaos land is called. Once I know its name, I will know where I am currently. Then I can ascertain where I should go next. Dongbush Shuang rapidly descended. But as a precaution, he used the less than 3,000 incarnations technique, creating an incarnation. His true body followed behind in the dark. Chapter 796. Within the primal chaos land. Many lifeforms were reproducing and cultivating here. Quick, quick, quick! Hurry up! A group of attendants rapidly entered the dark palace hall. There was currently a monster that could barely transform into a humanoid sitting on top of it. He was currently looking downwards. After the group of attendants entered, they waved their hands. At that moment, many cages appeared in the palace hall. Some of the cages had a group of humans, some had a group of beasts, and some had some plant lifeforms. But there was a common point: all of them were at least at the world deity level, though their strength had been sealed. Master, the food has been sent. These attendants were slightly terrified. And men. The monster sat on top of it. It opened its mouth. A cage directly flew over. As it flew, it started shrinking before turning into a small dot that flew into its bloody mouth. After eating it, its abdomen wiggled. The karma is gone. These attendants were all at the ordinary powerful existence level. They could sense that those who entered had lost their karma, and could not help but feel sorrowful. It was just that they did not dare to reveal any strange expressions on their faces. The monster continued eating with ka-cha sounds. Humans, beasts, plants, all sorts of cultivators were swallowed into its stomach. Halfway through eating, he suddenly looked up. There is actually an outsider. So, he immediately teleported through the void and disappeared. These attendants let out a sigh of relief. But they could not help but look outwards. They were powerful existences, and could see through the obstruction of the void to the distant scene. That was a black-robed teenager descending on this primal chaos land. An outsider? A human? The attendants were all excited. Those who roam the primal chaos void are usually void gods. Furthermore, looking at his appearance, those monsters would prefer to maintain their ugly heads and ugly scales even after turning into a humanoid form. This outsider should be an ordinary cultivator. We have hope? He is here to save us? These attendants looked at each other. They were excited and uneasy at the same time. They had even started spreading the news in the dark. Many powerful existences amongst the cultivators on this primal chaos land received a piece of news. A powerful cultivator had descended from the primal chaos void, and it was possible that he would be fighting with those void monsters. they might be saved. In their hearts, they understood that the chances of them being saved were extremely low, because experts would not easily risk their lives for strangers. At the same time, they knew how frightening these void monsters were. Even if the one who came was a void god, the possibility of him saving them was very low. But, no matter how low it was, there was still hope. Their days were dark and hopeless. Now that they could see a glimmer of hope, it was enough to make them look forward to it excitedly. The moment Donbush Shuang arrived, he could feel an invisible ripple. Not good, there's an alarm array. I'll be discovered the moment I enter. Donbush Shuang understood this. Fortunately, it was only his incarnation that he revealed to the outside world. At this moment, his true body had also released his senses towards the void, instantly enveloping the entire void land. Donbush Shuang was puzzled. This primal chaos land had countless ordinary lifeforms. There were mortals, transcendents, deities, world deities, and even true gods. However, there were actually many world deities and even true gods being imprisoned. At the same time, the strongest one was actually a group of void creatures. There were a total of 16 void creatures. Oh, there was also a dazzling and vast palace that had an extremely formidable array. Even with his void senses, he could not penetrate through it at all. The void creatures have entered the primal chaos land and are ruling over this place. Donbush Shuang thought, but why are they imprisoning those cultivators? The void creatures were intelligent, and it was not strange for them to occupy a primal chaos land. But most of the time, they would get along well with them. Hoo! The surrounding void rippled, and figures appeared one after another. They were all void creatures that had appeared directly through the void. They had now barely transformed into human forms, and some of their sharp claws, scales, ugly heads, and other special features were still retained. They were all staring at Donbush Shuang. Their eyes were emitting light. I've been roaming in the primal chaos void and happened to pass by this place. That's why I'm here to pay a visit. Donbush Shuang chuckled. In his heart, however, he was becoming more alert. After the void creatures become more intelligent, they would usually get along with the cultivators. But when they see me, their gazes seem strange, as if they are looking at prey. Oh, you are here to pay a visit? A total of 6 void creatures appeared. One of them was a tall and thin void creature. You are a ruler, yet you are able to roam the primal chaos void? Are you relying on external objects or some special movement technique? It isn't good for you to ask about such a secretive matter during our first meeting, right? Donbush Shuang frowned. The reason why I am here is because this is a place that has not been marked on my void map. Thus, I would like to ask, where is this place? A ruler brat dares to be so arrogant. Let's eat him. Whoever kills him first will be the one to eat him. These void creatures were already discussing amongst themselves. They did not conceal their thoughts at all. If it was a void god who came, they would still be slightly vigilant. As for a ruler, they were not afraid. Donbush Shuang felt puzzled inwardly. He could determine that these 6 void creatures in front of him were at the true god-ruler realm. Yet they dared to disregard his incarnation? His incarnation was also at the ruler realm. Unless there were other void gods in the dark. Donbush Shuang immediately thought back to that chain of palaces which he could not penetrate through. Who? An unfamiliar void creature suddenly appeared by his side. A pair of sharp claws immediately enveloped over, causing the other 6 void creatures who were still discussing to become anxious. You actually dared to be the first. This is the region we are in charge of. This is our prey. Whoever kills him first will be the one to eat him. That unfamiliar void creature was entirely black, and its surface was faintly translucent. His pair of translucent claws were extremely sharp too. A spear appeared in the hands of the black-robed Donbush Shuang. The tip of the spear was covered in a black light. Even though this was just an incarnation, Donbush Shuang had left behind the most destructive offensive technique of the Void Walker lineage, termination energy. After all, the incarnation was condensed from energy. It was not as strong as the true body, and could only display some laws and profound mysteries techniques. Pooh! He immediately struck out with his spear. The spear's shaft spun and rolled out. The translucent void creature felt that the spear in front of him was very strange. The spear's shaft was constantly spinning, and the trajectory of the spear's tip was constantly changing. He was not confident that he could block this spear for a moment. Pooh! The tip of the spear instantly pierced 125 holes on the body of the void creature. The destructive power contained in the spear and the destructive power of the termination energy instantly caused serious damage to this semi-transparent void creature with an extremely strong vitality. If it had a weak vitality, it would have died. Dongbui Shuiying's hands did not stop. At the same time as he pulled out his spear, he similarly pierced out with his spear. That heavily injured translucent void creature could only cry out, "Save me!" At the same time, its body began tunneling into the void. But in terms of control over the void, these void creatures that relied purely on their innate talent could not compare to the void walker Dongbui Shuiying. The spear directly pierced through the void, piercing through the body of this void creature once again, creating another 125 holes. This time, this void creature was instantly killed. This caused the other void creatures in the distance to be dumbfounded. Dead? Their comrade died just like that. The first sword of the 13 Armageddon swords is too weak. Logically speaking, I should only be able to pierce through one hole. But I can't even stabilize the spearhead. Under the instantaneous burst of power, the spearhead actually pierced through 125 holes. Dongbui Shuiying glanced at the items left behind by the dead void creature. This is my first battle after entering the primal chaos void. The feeling of using the first sword of the 13 Armageddon swords to kill the enemy was much more satisfying than burying his head in cultivation. Some of the powerful existences in the primal chaos land raised their heads and watched nervously. They were yearning, incomparably yearning, hoping for a miracle to happen. Within the chain of palaces that Dongbui Shuiying found hard to detect. Within one of the palaces, the black-scaled void creature that was lying in a meditative position breathed out from his nostrils. His cold eyes were currently observing the happenings in the outside world. Trivial matters like guarding and welcoming outsiders were handled by his subordinates. With his status and identity, how could he easily take action? Big brother, looks like these fellows are still unable to deal with this outsider ruler. I'll go and deal with him. The black-scaled void creature spoke. His voice rumbled and transmitted to a hidden palace in the depths of the chain of palaces. Okay. The deep voice replied. It's been a long time since I ate a ruler. There are too few of them. The black-scaled void creature flew out of his palace with some interest. Chapter 797. The 6 void creatures that originally wanted to surround and attack Dongbui Shuiying were currently in a state of panic because that mysterious black-robed young man had easily disappeared from their vision before sneaking up on them. Furthermore, the power of his spear technique was great. Even though they tried their best to defend against it, they were not his opponent. Pff. The spear spun and rolled out, the tip of the spear instantly piercing the bone armor on the chest of a void creature. The bone armor had natural engravings, causing the spear to barely be able to pierce through it, but this time, 119 holes were instantly pierced through. There is really some improvement. Dongbui Shuiying felt joy in his heart. The instantaneous power of this spear is too strong. The spearhead is slightly messy, and I can't perfectly condense all the force into one. The scattered force and the termination energy attached to the spearhead could heavily injure the void creatures. If he could perfectly condense the force into one, even if he did not rely on the termination energy, the power of his spear technique could reach another level, allowing him to fight against void gods of a higher realm. Again, this incarnation of Dongbui Shuiying did not display his domain because he wanted to temper his spear technique and learn the first sword of the Great Void Heaven Temple Absolute Art, the 13 Apocalyptic Swords. By then, coupled with the huge advantage of the Void Walker system, killing ordinary void gods would be easy for him. But the prerequisite was that he had to learn the first sword. Not good. Dongwu Shuang suddenly felt his heart jolting. His true body could sense the void, and he discovered a terrifying existence coming out from that group of palaces that he could not see. Following that, the other party tore through the void and arrived here. That terrifying aura was unquestionably that of a void god. A group of trash. A voice boomed in the surrounding void. An enormous black-scaled creature coiled and coiled appeared. The remaining 5 void creatures were both startled and delighted. One of their leaders had arrived. They were saved. The black-robed Dongwu Shuang stood in midair with his spear in hand. He looked at the coiled black-scaled creature in front of him. Judging by its appearance, there are no records of it in my intelligence reports. It should be a lower-graded void creature. There were many different types of void creatures, and there were differences in their grades. Just like the pioneer of the Void Walkers. He was said to be the pinnacle, born to be the leader of countless void creatures. But Dongwu Shuang did not dare to be careless. Even if they were of a lower grade, void creatures had an advantage in terms of their bodies as compared to other lifeforms in the cosmos. Furthermore, those who broke through the bottleneck to the void god realm were not easy to deal with. Sovereign? There was a trace of interest in the black-scaled creature's cold eyes. He spoke with a booming voice. Your strength is not bad. You are much stronger than the idiots of this chaos land. I will give you a chance. Use your strongest attack. If you can surprise me, I might spare your life. Enslaving the countless lives of the entire primal chaos continent and wantonly devouring them, you have violated a taboo. Dongwu Shuang shouted coldly. Do you know what awaits you if the stronger cultivators find out about this? Haha, many of the surrounding regions have been occupied by us. Why would we be afraid of you cultivators? The black-scaled creature sneered. Shuang was startled when he heard that. Quite a few superpowers believed that wantonly devouring the innocent was a taboo, and the moment it was discovered, they would be killed without mercy. But even amongst the high and unparalleled cosmos gods, there were some extremely wicked cultivators. Furthermore, they were not united. If they were united, the most primitive ancient sacred world would not have exploded because of the Great War. Thus, those who violated the taboo would be killed without mercy. Only a few superpowers were carrying out this taboo. There were also some experts who abhorred evil and followed this taboo. But now, many of the surrounding regions had been occupied. This meant that it was not a minority of void creatures who were too mad. Instead, they had formed a superpower with a backer behind them. Brat, do it. If you don't, you won't have the chance anymore, the black-scaled creature said. Hom. The black-robed Dongwu Shuang's expression sunk. At that moment, he released the slaughter domain in all directions with him as the center. This was the fusion of the Tao of Ripple and Tao of Slaughter. Even though his incarnation could not control the void, the power of the slaughter domain was sufficient to cause the expressions of the few remaining void creatures to change. Ping! The body of the black-scaled creature suddenly emitted many circular black ripples. The black ripples easily suppressed the slaughter domain. Too weak. Too weak. In front of a void god, you are still too weak. The black-scaled creature sneered. Dongwu Shuang was inwardly startled. Such a powerful law domain. He had fought with the 100 leading howls before. The 100 leading howls was indeed a weaker void god chosen by forefather Tianyu. Even though he could not control the void, the pure slaughter domain could not resist at all. If not for the other party restraining himself, he would have been suppressed to death with a single domain. His strength is stronger than the 100 leading howls. This should be considered the strength of an ordinary void god. Dongwu Shuang thought. Dongwu Shuang disappeared into the mirage world. He followed the mirage world and closed in on the black-scaled creature. Here? The black-scaled creature was slightly interested. Through the law domain, he discovered that the cultivator was approaching him from another level of the world. This concealment technique is quite formidable. A spear pierced out from nothingness. The spear body revolved as it pierced out. The spearhead was emitting a black light. The black-scaled creature did not resist when he saw that. He allowed the spearhead to pierce into his body. Chi chi chi! The spear had pierced out uncontrollably for a total of 119 times, yet not a single white spot could be seen on the body of the black-scaled creature. His body is stronger than the 100 leading howls too, Dongba Shuang deduced. You are too weak. The black-scaled creature shook his head. Dongba Shuang persevered and continued piercing out with his spear. 118 times, 113 times. Those scales that were filled with toughness and had many mysterious inscriptions on the surface were extremely hard to pierce through, yet it forced Dongba Shuang to adjust his spear technique. The black-scaled creature sensed for a moment before shaking his head. So weak. Who? He abruptly extended his claws. Every single claw was as sharp as a saber. The surface of the claw was shrouded in black fog. As it clawed out, it forced its way into the mirage world. Even though its power was weakened within the mirage world, it still landed on the body of the black-robed Dongba Shuang. Dongba Shuang might be using his spear technique to defend against it, but in the face of this vast power, it was much more terrifying than when his true body was at the 20th level of Walker's hidden secret. His body was instantly disintegrated. Nevertheless, this terrifying power was controlled perfectly. It actually wanted to protect the soul within Dongba Shuiying's body and capture him alive. You are delusional. The strand of consciousness within the incarnation transmitted a message. Closely following that, it took the initiative to disintegrate. This was after all an incarnation. If he did not take the initiative to disintegrate, the other party would be able to see through him. The moment the incarnation died, the weapons and other treasures were immediately expelled from the mirage world. It was Dongba Shuang who took the initiative to give them up. The black-scaled creature shook his head and sneered. So weak. He can't even injure me. Second Commander, you have already stepped into the Void God realm. How can a puny ruler compare to you? The other 5 true God ruler void creatures were flattering him. Stepping into the Void God realm was an extremely difficult hurdle for void creatures. After all, they were born with the ability to reach the ruler realm. And to reach the Void God realm, they had to cultivate. I originally wanted to eat his soul. Who would have thought that he would take the initiative to commit suicide? The black-scaled creature snorted. He then tore through the void and left with a whoo. This kind of cultivator with a weak body was only attracted to his soul. Quick, 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 let's split the treasures together. Those 5 void creatures immediately began dividing the treasures left behind by the incarnation of Dongba Shuang. Of these treasures, some were obtained from the 2 void creatures he killed previously. Dongba Shuang did not care about these treasures. He temporarily feigned his death so as to lower the enemy's guard. But the natives of this primal chaos land and those powerful existences who had transcended were watching this battle from afar. Even though they felt that the hope of saving the other party was slim, they were still looking forward to it. Because they had stayed in the darkness for too long. That was a piece of darkness with no hope at all. It's over. He is ultimately a ruler and is far from being the opponent of that void god monster. The hearts of these powerful existences had completely fallen into a bottomless abyss. The strongest amongst them was only at the Paragon realm. As for the rulers, their strength had long been sealed and imprisoned. Facing this group of void creatures that came from the primal chaos void, they could not resist at all. The weakest amongst this group of void creatures was a true god ruler, and the strongest was a void god. Void gods, against true gods, it was simply a massacre. One had to know that even the extremely precious Void Walker inheritance could not defeat a void god after cultivating it to the limit of the ruler realm, the 20th level. One had to cultivate in other systems before it was possible. In the holy ground of the laws and profound mystery system, the great Void Heaven Temple, only the most dazzling golden-robed disciple with the highest talent could kill a void god. Killing a void god was too rare, and not even 1 in 10,000. Only a holy ground like the Great Void Heaven Temple could barely give birth to a dozen or so such monsters. This cultivator that came from the primal chaos void is still too weak. It's a pity that he has died too. There's no hope. There will never be any hope. These powerful existences felt sullen and unwilling in their hearts. But they were still enduring. Those who could not endure had either committed suicide or sent themselves to their deaths. Those who survived were all silently enduring, hoping that hope would descend upon them in this endless night. Within the mirage world, the white-robed Dongbush Shuang was currently standing here. He was extremely confident of his concealment techniques. Other than the mirage world and controlling the void, more importantly, he had 3 survival talismans as a golden-robed disciple. One of the talismans was used to conceal his aura. The moment he concealed his aura, most void gods would only be able to discover him at the primal chaos realm. Very few Unity Realm experts who specialized in scouting could discover him too. But it was practically impossible for ordinary void gods to discover him unless they had some mysterious treasures. Actually, these void creatures who did not specialize in their realms could be concealed using the mirage world and controlling the void, much less with the talismans. He is very strong. Dongbush Shuang thought, he is stronger than the 100 leading howls. My incarnation has a weak body. If I were to fight with my true body, the gap in strength between us wouldn't be so exaggerated. With the advantage in the realm, and the void god weapon, Dongbush Shuang thought, it shouldn't be a problem for me to fight against him. But the possibility of killing him is slightly lower. Furthermore, I know too little about them. Dongbush Shuang looked in a certain direction. Through the void, he could see a chain of palaces. This chain of palaces was something he could not see through at all. Treasure Spirit, I'll have to rely on you to investigate. Dongbush Shuang transmitted. Master, it's just a small matter. Leave it to me. The Black Gourd Treasure Spirit said confidently. But you have to stay closer to that chain of palaces. As long as you are within my scouting region, I can even clearly see through their combat power. Dongbush Shuang revealed a grin. Very good. Today was the first chapter. Chapter 798. With the help of the life-saving talisman, Dongbush Shuang executed the void evasion. Compared to those void creatures, his execution was much stealthier, as though he was one with the void. The primal chaos land was only so big, but in the blink of an eye, Dongbush Shuang had arrived at the periphery of the chain of palaces. Weapon Spirit, are you able to investigate now? Dongbush Shuang asked. Without knowing anything about the enemy, he did not dare to enter recklessly. That's enough. The entire palace complex is within my detection range. The Black Gourd Treasure Spirit transmitted. Woo, it is fortunate that you did not barge in. There are a total of 3 void god level void creatures within this group of palaces. 3 void gods? Dongbush Shuang felt his heart twitching. The 3 of them are talking about you. Let me listen carefully. The Black Gourd's artifact spirit was silent for a moment before saying, Master, the one who fought with you just now is the 2nd leader. His strength should also be ranked 2nd. 3rd commander and 2nd commander are close to each other, and the great commander's soul is much stronger, though they are both ordinary void gods. Dongbush Shuang pondered silently. The great leader seems to be very concerned about your background. He has already given the order to start investigating the items you left behind. The Black Gourd's artifact spirit said. You're quite cautious. Dongbush Shuang shook his head and smiled. Did you find out what this chaos land is called? You know the name. Only then did he know which part of the void map this chaotic land corresponded to. No one talked about it. The various buildings and items in the palace complex were also unable to determine the name of this primal chaos land. The artifact spirit said helplessly. Right, Master, the 3 leaders are all swallowing lives. I can tell that they must be practicing the most stupid devouring cultivation system. Devouring type? Dongbush Ying's eyes were filled with anger. The 5 great sacred realms, the vast primal chaos void, and countless universes. There were many different cultivation systems, but there were not many that could lead to the ultimate. After all, in order to reach the final realm, one had to first be verified by a senior. And the number of cosmos gods recorded in history was pitifully few. Naturally, there were not many cultivation systems that led to the final realm. Among them, the simplest system was the devour system. The devour type was to devour everything and fuse it into one's own body. It could devour all kinds of rare treasures and even the souls of living beings. It could even devour the universe. There were two key points to this system. The first was the increasingly complex devouring technique. Devouring a normal life form and devouring a void god weapon naturally required different techniques. The other key was that one had to be able to absorb and convert what one had devoured into their own. This conversion and absorption method was also different for different levels. But from the most basic to the void god unity realm, devour class cultivation techniques were easy to obtain. That was because the creator of the devour class cultivation technique, Jiezu, had taken the initiative to publicize it. But if one wanted to reach the primal chaos realm, one had to rely on him. Only then would one be able to obtain more profound cultivation techniques. Devour. The easiest way to improve was undoubtedly to devour other cultivators. Therefore, this system produced many great devils, who wantonly devoured blood, and also caused public anger. However, Jiezu was too strong. Amongst the final realm existences, Jiezu was vaguely ranked in the top 3. His position was unshakable. That was why the devour class system did not go extinct. Instead, more and more cultivators cultivated this system, especially those void creatures with ordinary comprehension abilities. Many of them cultivated the devour class system. The weak are food for the strong. Dongbu Shuang shook his head. The final realm existences were too far away from him. But his luck was not bad. After all, the great void heaven temple was very powerful. Currently, there were 2 final realm existences, Forefather Tian Yu and Lake Heart Island Sword Master, guarding over the temple. No matter where he was, the moment he announced his name, it was sufficient to intimidate others. I still hope for a miracle. After serving the void creatures, a white-haired young attendant was currently seated in his own small courtyard. He felt dismal in his heart. How long will such days last? The white-haired young attendant thought. He had to maintain a calm expression on his face for fear of being discovered by the void creatures in the dark. Suddenly, the space beside him distorted, and a black-robed young man appeared in front of him. The white-haired attendant looked at the person in front of him in shock. You aren't! The black-robed young man in front of him was the dominator expert that they saw battling with the void creatures. You really thought that I was dead? Dongbu Shuang laughed and teased. That was just me deceiving those fools. This place has merged with reality and illusion. That void creature that you are serving won't be able to discover you at all. That void creature was also a dominator, but its cultivation realm was very low. With Dongbu Shuiying's attainments in the Mirage Dao, deceiving a dominator void creature was still a piece of cake. Oh! The white-haired young man nodded his head. His eyes were emitting light as he saw hope. He wasn't worried about being deceived. After all, their current status was that of slaves and food. Those void creatures wouldn't even bother to deceive them. Let me ask you. Even I, a mighty ruler, was treated as a spoil of war and given to a void creature. The majority of rulers had become food reserves for the 3 leaders. Only a few were given to subordinates who had contributed greatly. This black-haired man was one of them. Who will save us? When will these days end? The black-haired man's heart was filled with despair. Who? The black-haired man suddenly felt the void in front of him distorting as a figure appeared. It was a black-robed young man. This caused the black-haired man to feel shocked. He tried to blink his eyes, but there was indeed a black-robed young man standing in front of him. Don't worry. Nobody will know what happened here. Dongbu Shuang smiled. Are you here to save us? To save this primal chaos land? The black-haired man hurriedly asked. I will do my best. If nothing unexpected happens, there is an 80% to 90% chance of saving us. Dongbu Shuang said. The black-haired man's eyes instantly lit up. Do you know the name of this primal chaos land? Dongbu Shuang asked. I know. The black-haired man immediately replied. I heard the emperor mention it before. It is called the Chintai continent. Asterisk asterisk. Chapter 799. Dongwu Shuang immediately felt joy in his heart. He began comparing it with the void map that he knew of. The Qintai Great Land was one of the many continents in the primal chaos void. It was the closest to the Eastern Unicorn sacred world of the 5 great sacred worlds. It would take him roughly 100 million years to reach the Eastern Unicorn sacred world with his current speed. Eastern Unicorn sacred world? Dongbu Shuang thought. Who would have thought that I would be able to cross such a great distance by entering the void corridor in the primal chaos void and arrive close to the Eastern Unicorn sacred world? It seems that I can only go there first. He did not dare to think about returning to the 7-star oceanic sacred world temporarily, because it was too far away. The 2 sacred worlds were incomparably far apart. Due to the distance, there would be more dangers along the way. With his current strength, he would have to spend more than a cosmos epoch to return even if his journey was absolutely safe. Such a long journey was sufficient to kill him. Hence, it was better for him to focus on improving his strength. The stronger he was, the easier it would be for him to return to the 7-star oceanic sacred world or his hometown cosmos. There are 3 cosmos gods and 1 Lord Lo Qing in the Eastern Unicorn sacred world. Dongbu Shuang thought, to me, it is not bad. Of the 3 cosmos gods in the Eastern Unicorn sacred world, there was one who had a weaker relationship with Dongbu Shuang, and that was the teacher of Gu Qian Luo, Ancestor Bone. There was one who was closer to Dongbu Shuang, and was even stronger than Ancestor Bone. He was also the creator of the Void Walker system, Void Primogenitor. Void Primogenitor resided in the Void God Palace of the Eastern Unicorn sacred world. According to hearsay, there were 9 million void creatures existing in the Void God Palace, with more than 10,000 void gods. They were all loyal to Void Primogenitor. The Void God Palace was a relatively benevolent superpower that abhorred evil. None of the void creatures that could enter were evil. Otherwise, Void Primogenitor would kill them. Like Dongbu Shuang, who obtained the Void Walker inheritance, there was a temperament trial too. Saber Emperor, Ancestor Bone, Void Primogenitor, and Lord Lo Qing. Dongbu Shuang admired this Lord Lo Qing the most. That was because the first 3 were all ultimate existences. As for Lord Lo Qing, he was the only one who could fight against the Cosmos God at the Primal Chaos realm in the 5 great sacred worlds and the Primal Chaos Void. Even in the history of the world, there were countless experts who could fight against Cosmos Gods at the Primal Chaos realm. Yes. The Cosmos God realm was the final realm. The moment one crossed this step, his strength would undergo a heaven-shaking transformation. The male with messy black hair shook his head. At that time, a large group of void creatures came, and there were quite a few void gods among them. My clan's monarch was soon surrounded and devoured. Some of those void creatures left, and some chose to occupy this place for a long period of time. From then on, we became their slaves and their food. Those who could not endure it have long died. Only those of us who are struggling at death's door and still yearn for hope to descend are able to survive until now. The male with messy black hair laughed bitterly. Every once in a while, they would force us to refine an avatar for them to devour. They have treated us as an endless supply of food. If not for the strand of hope, I might not have been able to hold on any longer. Dongbu Shuang nodded. To turn countless living beings on a primal chaos great land into food, one could see from this that the cosmos was much safer. It forbade void gods from entering, and even the operating laws of the cosmos would repel outsiders. Only a cosmos like the Devil Mountain cosmos with a protector dared to be tolerant towards outsiders. The cultivator cosmos was relatively tolerant too because there was a wild black dog protecting them in the dark. Do you know the names of the surrounding primal chaos great lands? Dongbu Shuang asked. I know a part of it. The male with messy black hair reported another 20 over names. Dongbu Shuang compared them with his own void map. That's right, it was indeed this region. Rest assured. I can guarantee that all of you will definitely be saved. It's just that all of you might have to endure for a period. Dongbu said. As long as we can be saved, we can wait. The male with messy black hair nodded. Deep within a mountain range on this primal chaos great land, there was a bamboo house. Dongbu was temporarily staying here. He brought along a life-saving talisman to conceal his aura so as to prevent the void creatures from discovering him. This is my first time using the communication talisman. Dongbu flipped his hand, taking out a unique translucent triangular item. This was the communication talisman of a disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Being a golden-robed disciple, this communication talisman of his was much more precious. Practically anywhere in the 5 great sacred worlds and primal chaos void, one could use this communication talisman to send news back to the Great Void Heaven Temple. For instance, asking for help, even though he could not return to the Great Void Heaven Temple temporarily, Dongbu would not ask for help. After all, being a golden-robed disciple, he had taken the initiative to come out and take risks. He did not encounter any danger, yet he wanted to ask for help to bring him back to the Great Void Heaven Temple. That would be a joke. 1. Dongbu activated the communication talisman, sending a message directly back to the Great Void Heaven Temple. The triangular communication talisman surged with energy, and a terrifying might brewed within it. Following that, a large amount of energy was consumed, and the communication talisman resonated with the distant Great Void Heaven Temple, sending the message over. 60% of the energy has been consumed? Dongbu exclaimed inwardly. To replenish the energy of the communication talisman, with my current strength, I'm afraid I'll need more than a month. Now that there was only 40% of the energy left, he would not be able to contact the Great Void Heaven Temple for a short period of time. Great Void Heaven Temple. This was a special space with many floating mountain peaks. Many of the mountain peaks had caves and palaces, and right in the center was the largest floating continent. On it was a chain of palaces, and there was a dazzling palace that illuminated the entire space. This was the Great Void Heaven Temple, famous across the 5 great sacred worlds. One had to know that the number of cosmos gods in a sacred world could be counted with one's fingers, and the Great Void Heaven Temple had 2 cosmos gods protecting it. One could see how stable its status was, and how famous it was. Many figures were flying. The Great Void territory is under the jurisdiction of my Great Void Heaven Temple. They actually dared to create chaos in our territory, and even sacrificed the lives of 15 primal chaos great lands to the Ancestor Mother. Humph, this is the Great Void territory. Even the true body of the Ancestor Mother doesn't dare to be arrogant in our territory. Hurry up and send Chun One's disciple over to capture them alive and send them into the Devil Refinement Prison. Those who can't be captured alive should be killed. The leading figure was wearing a luxurious black robe. His blood-colored hair was fluttering, and his eyes were filled with a terrifying coldness. Yes, Hall Master. A girl behind him respectfully acknowledged. This Hall Master in front of her was the famous Punishment Hall Master, Ancestor Devil. According to the legends, Ancestor Devil came from the same cosmos as the Sword Master. But Ancestor Devil believed in the survival of the fittest. After the Great Void Heaven Temple was subjected to the rules of the Heaven Palace, Lake Heart Island Sword Master took the initiative to arrange for Ancestor Devil to take on the position of Punishment Hall Master. At that moment, the cultivators of the Great Void Heaven Temple became much more obedient. Not many dared to casually challenge the rules of the Great Void Heaven Temple. What is happening? Ancestor Devil looked afar. There was a huge crystal wall in front of which many cultivators were discussing. It was a huge commotion. There is actually a new golden-robed disciple. Who would have thought that there is another golden-robed disciple outside of the 10 great golden-robed disciples? This is someone who passed through the trials created by the old ancestor. Starting cosmos? This cosmos. Sword Master and Ancestor Devil should be from this cosmos, right? Those cultivators were discussing. The 10 great golden-robed disciples. They were all monsters who could fight against those of a higher realm. The news of a new golden-robed disciple appearing had spread rapidly, much less that he came from the same cosmos as Lake Heart Island Sword Master and Ancestor Devil. And then? Ancestor Devil heard the news too. He took a step and arrived in front of the crystal wall. When the surrounding cultivators saw Ancestor Devil, they were so frightened that they retreated to the side respectfully. Ancestor Devil might have cultivated for a short period, but he had long stepped into the primal chaos realm. He was a big shot within the Great Void Heaven Temple. Furthermore, his methods were ruthless. He was also the Punishment Hall Master, causing the cultivators of the Great Void Heaven Temple to fear him. Ancestor Devil looked up. There were many missions appearing on the crystal wall, of which the third message at the top was what he wanted to see. These missions were arranged according to their importance and time. There are at least 200 primal chaos continents in the Chintai Great Land. All of them have been occupied by void creatures, and they are wantonly consuming cultivators as food. This mission has already been confirmed by the Inquisitive Sky Hall. These void creatures can be killed, and those who accept the mission will receive detailed information. This mission is issued by the Golden Robe Disciple, starting Cosmos, Dongbua Shuang. ****. Chapter 800. When Ancestor Devil saw this mission, the edge of his lips curled upwards. His smile caused the surrounding cultivators of the Great Void Heaven Temple to feel a chill. Dongbua Shuang? Ancestor Devil muttered. Our primal cosmos has finally produced a decent young fellow after us. But he actually ran to the Eastern Unicorn's sacred world. Even though it is quite far and it will be troublesome to rush over, but it has been a long time since I went out for a walk. Let me go out and have a good slaughter. At the same time, I can visit this little friend from my hometown. Ancestor Devil accepted the mission with a thought. The mission that originally appeared on the crystal wall disappeared. With Ancestor Devil's strength, he was qualified to accept this mission. Even though he was the youngest primal chaos existence in the Great Void Heaven Temple, his strength wasn't any weaker than those primal chaos existences who had cultivated for a long time. His reputation was built by killing. Who? Ancestor Devil then turned around and left. Only then did the other cultivators let out a sigh of relief. Chintai Continent. Dongbua Shuang was cultivating in a low-profile manner. Even though he comprehended the Void Walker system, Ripple Dao, and Mirage Dao, most of his attention was placed on the less than 13 apocalyptic swords of the Dao of Slaughter. After all, if the Void Walker system could allow him to possess a terrifying body and an extremely powerful offensive termination energy, then the less than 13 apocalyptic swords would allow him to utilize the laws and profound mysteries to its pinnacle. Furthermore, the laws and profound mysteries had an extremely formidable aspect. The moment he comprehended it, his incarnations could use it too. Amen? The incarnation of Dongbua Shuang was cultivating the first apocalyptic sword deep in a desert. Even though his concealment techniques were formidable, the moment he practiced it, it would be easy for the enemies to discover him if they were searching for him. Hence, Dongbua Shuang relied on his incarnations to practice from afar. He would not reveal his true body. I have been drifting in the primal chaos void for over 50 million years, and I have comprehended half of it. There are only a few bottlenecks that I have yet to comprehend. After fighting with those void creatures for a few times, my first apocalyptic sword had a breakthrough. Now that I have reflected on the previous battles, I have another huge breakthrough. Dongbua Shuang revealed a look of joy. Currently, I can control my spear to form 35 holes. It was actually very normal. During his long period of meditation, he had already comprehended the apocalyptic first sword to an extremely high level. There were only a few things left that he needed to test in battle. Time flew by. In one of the cities of the Chintai continent, in a blacksmith's yard, a cold-faced young man was striking a knife embryo with a sledgehammer. Suddenly, an invisible force seeped into the young man's body, sealing his soul. At this moment, he couldn't even kill himself. The young man's body trembled slightly as he gently put down the sledgehammer in his hand. Universe God Dongyi. Suddenly, a gray-robed elder appeared in the courtyard. His voice was hoarse. Master has chosen you. The young blacksmith calmly turned around and looked at the gray-robed old man. The expression on his face turned into a faint smile. You've chosen me? You chose me as your food? Yes. The gray-robed elder said in a low voice. Ha ha, food, food. The young blacksmith laughed maniacally, and the surrounding ground trembled. Many items floated into the air and exploded. However, no matter how powerful the explosions were, they were all confined to the courtyard and did not affect the countless mortals outside. After cultivating to the stage 3 world deity realm, the end result is to become food. The young blacksmith looked at the gray-robed elder. His eyes were filled with a cold smile. You powerful existences who have transcended have also become the claws and teeth of those void monsters, capturing us for them. You are our seniors, the gray-robed elder said in a low voice. Master can cover the entire primal chaos continent with a single thought. Even if he doesn't send us, he can easily capture you with a single thought. He sent me because he is too lazy to do it himself. It's you who are afraid of death, the young blacksmith sneered. Us world deities are almost all eaten directly. As for you, at most, your avatars will be eaten. You can still cultivate them out. It's just food for a longer period of time, the gray-robed elder said coldly. Then why are we still alive? The young blacksmith's eyes were filled with madness. It's just that we are afraid of death. I hate that I can't see the day when those void monsters die. My wife was captured by you, my teacher was captured by you, my good friends were captured by you, and each and every one of them was eaten by the void monsters. Finally, it's my turn, ha ha ha. I only hate that I can't see the day when they die. The young blacksmith was like a madman. The gray-robed elder sighed softly. He extended his hand and grabbed the young blacksmith. Following that, he directly tore through the void and left. Since he was still alive, he chose to wait. He similarly hated those void monsters to the bone. His avatars were eaten alive time and time again. How could such a feeling not be painful? It was worse than death. But they still endured it. They wanted to live. In their hearts, they looked forward to the arrival of hope. However, many of them looked forward to the day when the void monsters were killed. They wanted revenge. Within the palace hall, a void creature in human form sat there. His arms were very long, and his head was thin and long. One of his eyes flickered with a cold jade light as he looked at the many cages below. Within the cages, a large number of world deities were imprisoned. Most of them were humans, but there were also some beasts and other life forms. All of them revealed expressions of anger, madness, and hatred. This thin and tall void creature chuckled strangely. With a thought, these food within the cages could all let out a sound. Void monster, eat. We aren't afraid. Void monster, there will be a day when a powerful cultivator will descend and kill you. We are just a step ahead. You guys will be here soon. Supreme Existence, I beg of you, please kill these void monsters. I will forever believe in you and serve you. The world deities within the cages were either cursing angrily, remaining silent, or going crazy. They hated these void monsters because they had turned the entire primal chaos land into hell. Too many of their friends, even their loved ones, life and death brothers, masters and disciples, they had all been eaten by these void monsters. To powerful existences who had transcended, the void creatures would still leave a sliver of hope. After all, devouring powerful existences would still be of some help to them. As for weak world deities, to these void monsters that were at least at the ruler level, devouring them was of no help to their strength. They preferred to see the despairing looks of these weak world deities. Woo! The thin and tall void creature squinted his eyes as he listened. I can hear fear, hatred, and despair. This is too interesting, too wonderful. The attendants by the side were all silent. They, the powerful existences, could live on, but the weak would be eaten in batches. There were also many weaker deities, transcendents, and mortals. They would often be eaten city by city, or even country by country. This was because the void creatures felt that this was a very joyous situation. All right, it is time to enjoy the delicacies. The thin and tall void creature spoke. His face was filled with an expression of enjoyment. This was the happiest moment of his life. Pooh! A spear suddenly appeared. The spear revolved and rolled over. The tip of the spear was still emitting a cold black light, causing the thin and tall void creature to reveal a look of terror. He hurriedly waved his arm to block, and a layer of scales appeared on his arm. But this spear was several times stronger than before. Pff, 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 pff. The thin and tall void creature's body was instantly pierced with 26 holes. As the number of holes decreased, its power skyrocketed. The endless slaughter energy contained within instantly destroyed this thin and tall void creature's body. At this moment, Dongbua Shuang walked out from the void with a spear in his hand. He coldly looked at the throne that had been completely shattered into nothingness. Only a few items were left beside the throne. It was just a single strike. That void creature had already been exterminated. I originally wanted to cultivate to become stronger, so I had to endure and not make a move. I was afraid that if I made a move, I would infuriate these void creatures and affect many powerful existences. Dongbua Shui Ying's eyes were filled with killing intent. But I was wrong. If I didn't make a move, the batches of world deities, transcendents, and mortals in this primal chaos great land would already be doomsday for them. For the lives of a small group of powerful existences, I have to watch as countless lives are being devoured. I can't do it. Then let's kill. I will do my best to kill them all. Dongbua Shui Ying's eyes were filled with killing intent. Chapter 801. Among the world deities who were imprisoned and about to be eaten was that blacksmith young man. All of them stared dumbfoundedly at the high and mighty void monster that possessed monstrous power. In front of a spear, with just one move, that void monster had already died. Dead, he's dead. Finally, an expert has descended? Has a supreme existence heard my prayers? These universe deities and even the attendants beside them felt excited. The attendants were almighties. Their avatars were being eaten time and time again, causing them to feel pain and despair. Some of their minds were even distorted. They did not even care about their own lives. They only wished for the void monsters that they hated the most to die. And now, that void monster was really dead. Looking at the black-robed young man who walked out from the void with a spear in his hand, the attendants and universe deities were crying tears of joy. Some of them remembered the appearance of the black-robed young man in front of them. Their hearts were filled with gratitude and excitement. They were even willing to die for the black-robed young man forever. Eternal loyalty. It's him? Many of the attendants recognized that the black-robed young man was the one who had died in the battle with a group of void creatures previously. But now, he was alive? The black-robed Dongbua Shuang turned his head and swept his gaze across the attendants, as well as the universe deities in the cages. This is the first one. With that, Dongbua Shuang took a step and disappeared. Ha ha ha! This day has finally come! This day that I have yearned for even in my dreams. As long as I can see this day, I can die in peace. It's enough, it's enough. Seeing the void monster die, it's enough. Many universe deities even shed tears. Even the attendants were trembling as they looked at the scene. Very soon, they received a karmic transmission. Brother Chien, the void monster that we are serving was killed by a black-robed senior who was holding a spear. He is the one who fought with a group of void monsters previously. It's the same for us. Dead. Ha ha ha, that monster is dead. I can finally see this day. Indeed. Dongbua Shuang controlled 3 clones at the same time. This was also the maximum number of clones that he could maintain at his peak. The 3 clones moved at the same time and killed 3 void creatures at the same time. Every time, a single spear strike was all it took to kill them. Following which, Dongbua Shuang did not hesitate as he teleported through the void to kill the other 3 void monsters. One could say that before the void creatures could react, or even when they did not know what was going on, Shuang had already killed a total of 9 void creatures. In addition to the 2 he had killed when he first entered the chaotic continent, there were a total of 11. There were only 5 ruler realm void monsters left on this primal chaos mainland. At this time, the 3 leaders received a message from one of the void creatures before it died. Enemy! But that dead void creature merely reported back to the leader. The other 5 ruler void creatures that were still alive did not know about it. Shui Ying's 3 incarnations relied on the void teleportation to kill another 3 void creatures in the blink of an eye. At this moment, the 3 leaders charged out and scanned the entire primal chaos mainland. Only then did they realize that there were only 2 void creatures left. Dead. The void creatures are dead. This day has finally come. They're all dead. The void creature on my side is dead too. Mine too. The one on my side is dead too. He was also killed by a black-robed senior wielding a spear in a single move. Ha! The news spread. The powerful existences, world deities, and deities of the entire primal chaos mainland were extremely excited. They spread the news to 10, 10 to 100, 10 to 100, a million. Countless lifeforms were excited. Many of them were crying tears of joy. Some even started to worship the black-robed senior that was described. If Dongbu Shuang were to raise his arm and call for help, countless lifeforms in the primal chaos mainland would be willing to follow him. Stop! You're actually still alive! The 3 leaders were enraged. Although they had already discovered the 3 incarnations of Dongbu Shuang, but what did Dongbu Shuang specialize in? It was a sneak attack. Furthermore, he had an advantage in terms of void teleportation. With an even faster speed, he arrived beside the 2 remaining ruler void creatures and instantly struck out with his spear. One of the void creatures roared in fear, but he was instantly killed. As for the other one, he met with some trouble. Humph! Following a cold snort, a green lightning appeared from the void and struck towards Dongbu Shui Ying's incarnation. Before Dongbu Shui Ying's spear could pierce the enemy, the green lightning had already landed on his body. His spear technique was completely unable to defend against it, and his body was instantly destroyed. As expected of the great leader. However, it's useless. At the moment when the black-robed Dongbu Shui Ying's body dissipated, his eyes were still burning with killing intent. Because, at the same time, 3 incarnations appeared in the surrounding and attacking that void creature. Incarnations, they were not afraid of death. Even if they were killed, they would be able to regenerate with a single thought. Pooh! The 3 incarnations attacked at the same time. The void monster raised its slender neck, and its pink head was filled with despair. The great commander only had time to attack one of the incarnations, and he could only watch helplessly as his last sovereign realm subordinate was killed. On this void creature's body, Dongbu Shui Ying's spear technique had reached a new realm. He could control his spear technique to a total of 12 holes. From the first void creature he killed in this battle, he had a total of 26 holes. Now, he had 12 holes. Every time he killed one, these void creatures had all sorts of defensive methods. Some relied on their scales, some relied on their skin, some relied on the power of flames, and some relied on the splitting of their bodies. Because of their different defensive methods, Dongbu Shui Ying's understanding of his own spear technique grew. The apocalyptic first sword originally lacked actual combat experience, but now, it had improved by leaps and bounds. Compared to the 100 holes he had when he first entered the primal chaos continent, he only had 12 holes now. Yet the might of his spear technique had increased by more than 10 times. All the ruler void creatures were killed. After the attendants spread the news, it soon reached the world deities and deities. They were all incomparably excited and joyous. I am truly satisfied to be able to wait until this day and see all of them exterminated. Other than the 3 strongest commanders, all the other void creatures are gone. It is already good that we could reach this stage. The attendants released some of the imprisoned sovereigns and sovereigns. They were all looking upwards. Looking at the distant void, there were 3 black-robed young men facing off against the 3 commanders. Those three were all terrifying void gods. It is worth it for us. We are willing even if we die. But this black-robed senior is currently in danger. The three commanders of the void creatures will definitely not let him off. Everyone who could see this scene through the void felt their hearts tightening. They had been immersed in endless darkness. This time, a large number of void creatures were exterminated. Even though the three strongest commanders were still alive, to the natives of the primal chaos continent, this was an unprecedented victory. They had already vented the resentment in their hearts. They were extremely satisfied to be able to reach this stage, and did not dare to hope for more. They were currently worried about this black-robed senior and his safety. Many world deities also found out from the powerful existences that this senior who saved them was currently in danger. All of them hoped that this senior could survive, and wished that they could use their lives to exchange for the safety of this senior. And at this moment, Dongbu Shuang did not feel any fear. His three incarnations each wielded a spear. They were scattered in the void, looking at the three void gods that appeared in front of them. They had different appearances, and the leading one had a pair of golden wings. He had a savage head, and a pair of dark yellow eyes was currently staring at Dongbu Shuang. By his side, one was the black-scaled monster whom he had fought previously. The other was the largest one with a three-eyed humanoid void creature with hair. Since you did not die the previous time, you should be hiding. Who would have thought that you still dare to come out and seek death? The black-scaled monster was slightly frustrated. It was he who killed the incarnation of Dongbu Shuang previously. The three black-robed Dongbu Shuang said at the same time, "The reason I came out is to kill the three of you." Star. Chapter 802. You are just a little true god ruler, yet you dare to say such big words? The hairy humanoid three-eyed void creature boomed. There is an insurmountable gap between true god rulers and void gods. Even if there are dozens or hundreds of rulers, I can still devour them in a single gulp. The black-scaled monster by the side was filled with disdain. Even though Dongbu Shuang had killed a large group of ruler void creatures, the three commanders did not feel threatened at all. Because according to their experience, rulers wanting to fight against void gods? What a joke! Only the most apex superpowers in the legends could nurture a handful of geniuses that could be counted with one's fingers, and only then could rulers transcend realms and kill void gods. But how rare were those geniuses? Furthermore, they did not have a single void god, but three, especially the great commander who had cultivated for a long period and was extremely powerful. Big brother? The hairy humanoid three-eyed creature turned to look at their great leader. The black-scaled monster also looked at the great leader. The great commander squinted at Dongbu Shuang, ordering, "Kill him!" "Yes." "Haha, kill!" The black-scaled monster and the humanoid three-eyed creature immediately acted after receiving permission. One could see circular black ripples emitting from the body of the black-scaled monster. These black ripples swept in all directions. As for the humanoid three-eyed creature, his third eye released an unseen ripple. This ripple swept across the three incarnations of Dongbu Shuang and in all directions. Strangely, the law domain of both parties did not interfere with each other at all. Humph! The three incarnations of Dongbu Shuang hid in the mirage world, greatly reducing the power of the black ripple. As for the unseen ripple, it was a unique soul attack. The three incarnations of Dongbu Shuang were controlled by his true body from afar. Just his consciousness descended, and he was not afraid of soul attacks. After killing those Dominator rank void creatures, my Armageddon first sword has improved tremendously. Now I can create 12 holes. The three void gods in front of me are even stronger. Fighting with them will be of greater help to me in tempering myself. I must take this opportunity to comprehend the apocalyptic first sword. Dongbu Shuang thought. He knew it himself. Without comprehending the apocalyptic first sword, wanting to kill three void gods was simply a dream. Therefore, he had to comprehend it as soon as possible. What he lacked in the apocalyptic first sword was actual combat. Boom! Within the mirage world, one of the black-robed Dongbu Shuang teleported towards the humanoid three-eyed creature. Immediately after, he thrust out the spear in his hand. The spear's shaft spun as it shot out. It was as if an invisible wheel of laws was crushing over. The stability of the spear's tip was somewhat difficult to control, and it trembled slightly as it stabbed towards the enemy. The humanoid three-eyed creature extended his hand, his hairy hand grabbing at Ying's spear. When the spear's body was constantly rotating, and the creature's hairy hand was unable to grasp it firmly. The spear's tip still pierced through his thick fur and skin, with some of the spear's tip penetrating deep into his body. "You can hurt me? Second brother, didn't you say that his offense is weak?" The three-eyed humanoid creature roared. At this moment, a total of 11 small holes had appeared on the chest of the black-scaled monster. These small holes were rapidly recovering. He was also roaring. "How would I know? The power of his spear technique has greatly increased, and he can actually injure me. But this little injury isn't much. Hurry up and kill him." If one said that the two incarnations had some battle results when fighting against the second and third commanders, then when attacking the Great Commander folded his golden wings and stood unmoving in the void. His dark yellow eyes swept across the incoming black-robed Shuang. At that moment, with a pa, a green lightning directly entered the mirage world and struck the body of the black-robed Shuang. No matter what spear technique it was, it could not resist against this strange green lightning, and in the blink of an eye, this incarnation was destroyed. But just as one incarnation was destroyed, another black-robed Dongbu Shuang appeared in the distant void. Incarnations relied on the energy of the mirage world and the less than 3,000 incarnations' absolute art to form them with a thought. Because the energy one could borrow was not much, the strength of the incarnation formed was slightly weaker. It was comparable to an ordinary ruler with a weaker body and could not compare with his true body. Seeing another incarnation appearing, the great commander squinted his eyes. What a formidable true god ruler. He has not revealed his true body from start to finish, and it is only his incarnations that came out to battle. Furthermore, the technique he used to condense his incarnations is extremely profound. Ordinary incarnations are condensed using the energy within their bodies, but he seems to be relying on external energy to condense them. Thus, it is impossible to find his true body. Like a void god. Using the void god energy within one's body to condense an incarnation to battle, the moment the incarnation died, one would have to use the void god energy within one's body to condense it again. By then, the enemy could completely rely on the disturbance created by condensing an incarnation to find the location of the true body. But Dongbu Shuang was different. He relied on the energy of the mirage world to condense an incarnation. Thus, it was impossible to find his true body. Since he is able to condense an incarnation with a thought, his true body must be hiding somewhere nearby. The great commander thought. If it was a primal caves giant, he might be able to condense an incarnation forcefully from a relatively far distance away. But the current black-robed teenager was merely a true god ruler. Since he could condense an incarnation with a thought, his true body must be somewhere nearby. And that was indeed the case. The true body of Dongbu Shuang should be within the region of the mirage world. But the enemy could not be found. I have to find him. Otherwise, it would be pointless no matter how many incarnations I kill. The great commander was feeling vexed. Hong! The great commander tried unleashing his law domain. At that moment, countless black lightning bolts appeared in the vast space. But the power of these black lightning bolts could not be compared to that single green lightning bolt. Still, they were superior in terms of quantity and range. They swept out wantonly and even invaded the interior of the mirage world. But after sweeping through the entire place, the great commander still did not discover any movement. How do we find him? Where exactly is he hiding? He shouldn't be hiding too far away. The great commander became even more vexed. He did not cultivate the witchcraft system that researched the myriad existences, nor did he cultivate the laws and profound mysteries system that was extremely profound. He was also not a void walker or some other unique system. Instead, he cultivated the simplest and most direct cultivation system, the devour class system. This system was to constantly devour and transform energy to make the body stronger. But it was too difficult to find Dongbu Shuiying, who was hiding in the dark. The mirage world, void evasion concealment, and the concealment talisman of the golden robe disciple. With these three great techniques, much less him, even Blood Blade, who had many profound techniques, could not find his disciple. He could not find Dongbu Shuiying, but Dongbu Shuiying was completely immersed in comprehending the apocalyptic first sword. Over the past 50 million years, he had been comprehending it time after time in actual combat. Actual combat could prove the results of a battle. If he continued to immerse himself in comprehending it, he might have to spend more than 10 million years before he could gradually succeed. But by combining comprehension with actual combat, the efficiency would be much faster. Big brother, this ruler's strength is increasing. The humanoid three-eyed creature's voice boomed. There were 3 obvious holes on the surface of his body. Hurry up and do it! Dongbu Shuiying could already control the 3 holes with a single thrust of his spear. Clearly, he was close to fully grasping the apocalyptic first sword. Even so, he was no longer at a disadvantage against the second and third commanders. If we can't find his true body, it doesn't matter how many incarnations we kill, the great commander coldly shouted. As he spoke, he swept his eyes across, and a green lightning instantly attacked this incarnation. But this time, Dongbu Shuiying used his spear to block it. The spear revolved and rumbled, bringing with it a strange profoundness. It was as though it could penetrate through the void. The tip of the spear contained an extremely terrifying Tao of Slaughter's profundities, forcefully tearing apart the green lightning. Although some of it still swept past Dongbu Shuiying's incarnation, it was unable to destroy it. His strength has really increased. The great commander was also anxious. Dongbu Shuiying's true body, on the other hand, was pondering over the experience he gained from tearing apart the lightning with his spear. I have to conceal the Tao of Slaughter more deeply. I cannot release it too much. The feedback from the battle caused him to continuously revise his spear arts. He could already feel that he was very close to comprehending the apocalyptic first sword. Chapter 803. The great chieftain was still trying to find Dongbu Shuiying's true body. As for Dongbu Shuiying, as he fought with the second chieftain and third chieftain, he started to gain enlightenment. His mind was suddenly enlightened, and he finally had a clear understanding of the first sword of the 13 apocalyptic swords. This apocalyptic first sword didn't have any worldly aura or killing intent. Instead, it had an enchanting beauty. It was as if everything was simple and pure. This extreme beauty caused Dongbu Shuiying to be intoxicated. He didn't dare to imagine that the Tao of Slaughter contained within this sword was clearly not complicated. However, it was like charcoal that had undergone a bizarre transformation, turning into an incomparably beautiful diamond. The apocalyptic first sword formed from the simple Slaughter Tao's profundities was so terrifying. This is Forefather Tian Yu's realm. It is said that it is possible to master the apocalyptic second sword in the ruler realm. However, since ancient times, only one ruler has managed to do so. Dongbu Shuiying thought to himself. The golden-robed disciples were all monstrous geniuses. However, even if an absolute art was placed in front of them, they would only be able to master the apocalyptic first sword at the ruler realm. However, Forefather Tian Yu was able to create a second sword that was even stronger than the ruler realm. It was true that there was always someone stronger. Pooh! The spear spun and pierced out. This time, the rotation seemed very slow. However, that was an illusion. In reality, it was extremely fast. The tip of the spear was like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water as it tapped on the chest of the black-scaled monster. Instantly, a huge hole appeared on the monster's chest. Furthermore, this hole was rapidly expanding and destroying the monster's body. It only stopped after destroying more than half of the monster's body. This caused the black-scaled monster to reveal a look of fear. The hairy three-eyed humanoid was attacked by the two incarnations. It was the same spear technique. However, with just a simple tap, 2 huge holes appeared on the three-eyed humanoid's body. Furthermore, the holes were expanding rapidly. No! The three-eyed humanoid shouted in fear. "Big brother, save me! Save me!" The second chieftain and the black-scaled monster stopped fighting and started fleeing frantically. Neither of them had expected that the incarnation, which had been on par with them just a moment ago, would suddenly increase in strength and completely suppress them. They reckoned that in a few moves they would die. What? The great leader, who had been searching for Dongwu Shui Ying's true body, was shocked. He hurriedly teleported over. "Stop! Pooh!" Another shot. The three-eyed humanoid's injuries were even more severe. His eyes were filled with despair and disbelief as he died. He had actually been killed by a sovereign. And it had only been one of the hegemon's clones. However, he should rest in peace because the one who killed him was a golden-robed disciple of the great Void Heaven Temple. Furthermore, it was a Void Walker. Because the black-scaled monster had only been attacked by one of the clones, the great leader had managed to save him in a thrilling manner. He had immediately kept the black-scaled monster into his grotto heaven treasure. The moment he had been saved, the black-scaled monster felt a sense of relief. In midair, 3 black-robed young men who looked exactly the same stood in midair surrounding the great leader. The great leader's dark yellow eyes swept across the 3 incarnations in front of him. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he growled. "I've long heard of some legendary rulers who cultivated in several cultivation systems. Some had even become the disciple of a cosmos god, and they could kill void gods with their ruler bodies. But I've heard of them before, yet I've never seen them before. This time, I've seen them with my own eyes. They are actually able to kill void gods just by sending their incarnations. Truly formidable. I wonder which superpower you came from? Which sacred world are you from out of the 5 great sacred worlds? You can't guess?" Dongbu Shuang retorted with a question. "Your incarnation is clearly very weak, yet your spear technique is so profound that it could draw out such terrifying power. Are you from the Laws and Profound Mysteries system?" the great leader asked. "I've heard that the primogenitor of the Laws and Profound Mysteries system has fallen. Currently, the strongest is the Great Void Heaven Temple in the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World. Are you from the Great Void Heaven Temple? But you are a ruler. Why would you come to the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World instead of the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World? It seems that I've guessed wrongly. You aren't from the Great Void Heaven Temple, and you have coincidentally obtained some formidable inheritance from the Laws and Profound Mysteries system?" Dongbu Shuang chuckled. "You seem to know quite a lot. I still thought that you know very little about the 5 great sacred worlds. You can leave. I can spare your life," the great leader coldly said. "Leave? Spare my life? Why? Can you find my true body?" Dongbu Shuang sneered. "You can't even find my true body, so don't talk about not killing me. Furthermore, I'm afraid you can't even kill my 3 incarnations." The expression of the great leader changed. "Die!" Dongbu Shuang coldly roared. The 3 incarnations acted at the same time. He wasn't going to be merciful. This time, the great leader had suffered such a great humiliation, and even the 3rd commander had died. If Dongbu Shuang were to leave just like that, when the great leader vented his anger, it was unknown how many lives in this primal chaos great continent would be implicated. Therefore, he naturally had to make a move. He had to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Both sides instantly clashed. The 3 incarnations walked around the mirage world, surrounding the great leader. Spear after spear attacked. The great leader finally flapped his golden wings. He directly transformed into a blurry bolt of lightning. His speed was extremely fast, and the might of his wings was extremely terrifying. Every single golden feather on his wings was extremely hard and sharp, just like daggers. Dang, dang, dang! When the spear pierced the wings, it merely left behind some white spots. It was basically unable to pierce through. His abdomen area is much weaker. Dongbu Shui Ying's 3 incarnations worked together to attack the great leader. and the great leader was releasing his domain to suppress in all directions. He would occasionally release a green bolt of lightning. His wings and claws were attacking time and time again, causing the three incarnations of Dongwu Shuang to be helpless against him. The great leader just needed to fold his wings slightly to protect his abdomen area. He is indeed much stronger than the second and third commanders. Not only in terms of strength, speed, or defense, he is much stronger. Dongwu Shuang was still feeling fortunate. Fortunately, he was a devourer type, and could only rely on some of the most fundamental abilities. If he were a void god that relied on the laws and profound mysteries, his law domain would be even more frightening. Because they relied on the laws to become a void god, their law domain would be created according to the laws they specialized in. Their combat techniques would also be much more profound. As for those of the devourer type, they were even more clumsy than those from the ancestor mother religion. Hence, even though they could not injure the other party for a moment, the three incarnations could easily defend themselves because the other party's attacks were too direct. Dongwu Ying's incarnations could easily resolve them. Damn! Why can't I kill him? I can't even kill his three incarnations. The great leader was feeling slightly anxious. He was attacking wantonly, and his power was surging. But the three incarnations of the human in front of him were clearly very weak, yet their spear techniques were extremely profound. Every spear could easily resolve his lightning, and dissipate the force from his wings. Pooh! This was a spear with a deep violet wooden shaft. There seemed to be some ordinary patterns on the spear body, though these patterns eventually converged at the spearhead. Furthermore, the entire spear was covered in a layer of black light. It was none other than the termination energy. The spearhead was like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water, and also like a lover's kiss. It pierced out from the void. The great leader immediately flapped his wings to defend against it, but the spearhead had forcefully pierced through those golden wings and into his abdomen. It had even penetrated through his body. He immediately kept the spear. It disappeared without a trace. It was as if he had never acted. He had completely disappeared. True body, that's his true body. The great leader's eyes widened. He looked behind him with a savage expression, yet he could not find his true body at all. Ah! That huge hole that pierced through his wings and body was rapidly expanding. It was corroding his life force, causing him to reveal a look of anxiety. He could feel death approaching. Don't you say that the laws and profound mysteries system specializes in the laws? Isn't the gap between their true bodies and incarnations too huge? Why is this one so huge? A strength that could match ordinary void gods. The termination energy that possessed a horrifying destructive power. Coupled with the void god weapon that he got as a golden-robed disciple, and finally, the apocalyptic first sword. Its power naturally far surpassed that of the incarnations. No. He directly teleported through the void in an attempt to escape. Pooh! How could he teleport through the void purely by instinct against the Void Walker who had reached the 20th level of Ascendant's hidden secret? The spear pierced through his body once again. What followed was another merciless spear. Just 3 spears. The great leader, who was about to flee, fell out of the void. His body was rapidly being corroded, and a look of disbelief appeared on his face as he stared into the distance behind him. At this moment, a white-robed young man wielding a dark purple spear walked out from the void. His eyes were incomparably cold, and the 3 clones around him directly dissipated. True body, I've finally seen your true body. Tell me, where did you come from? The body of the great leader was rapidly being corroded. It had already reached his head. Just as he finished speaking, his body completely shattered. Great Void Heaven Temple, golden-robed disciple, Dongwu Shuang. Dongwu Shuang softly said. It's a pity that the great leader could no longer hear it.